Chapter 391. Firstly, the state of Wei's foundation hadn't been completely destroyed, so moving it would cause some damage. However, unlike the Great Shun town, which had been completely destroyed, it could still be moved. Secondly, there were less than 10,000 people left in the state of Wei, and everyone else had died. With so few people, it was impossible for Zhao Fu to take them with him. Because Zhao Fu could not relocate the state of Wei town, he needed people to defend it. As such, Zhao Fu could not take the corpses of the state of Wei soldiers with high aptitudes either. After all, the state of Wei had already submitted to Great Qin, and he would not be able to do such a thing. However, there was one person and 3 corpses that Zhao Fu had to take with him. The person who was still alive was the round-faced young man. He was called Go Bian, and he was a general of the state of Wei with SS grade. The other 3 corpses were the state of Wei's historical generals. Their fate stars had been sealed, and if Zhao Fu refined their corpses, he would be able to obtain their grades and general stars and fuse them into someone else's body, obtaining 13 general stars. At the same time, the state of Wei's 50,000 player faction in the system main city had all become Qin City's faction. The state of Wei was the #1 faction in the region, and Qin City could use this as a cornerstone to take over this region. These 50,000 factions would be obtained for free, and Zhao Fu would provide them with some good equipment and medicinal pills to increase their battle strength so that they would be of great use when the region was destroyed. The matter with the state of Wei concluded here, and Zhao Fu took Qin City's soldiers and returned to Qin City. In the underground region, Zhao Fu first refined the 3 historical generals' corpses. They were all S-grade, and they represented Earthly Fiend General Stars. 3 Earthly Fiend General Stars could be fused into a Heavenly Spirit General Star. Sima Qiu himself was a Heavenly Spirit General Star, and he already had 2 Heavenly Spirit General Stars, so he needed 3 Heavenly Spirit General Stars to fuse into a Major General Star. He was only missing 1 Heavenly Spirit General Star, so Zhao Fu didn't give the innate talent blood crystal to Sima Qiu. Although Go Bian originally belonged to Weigua, with Weigua's surrender, he could naturally work for Qin. Right now, Zhao Fu had Bai Qi, Wang Jian, Wei Liao, Meng Kuo, and Sima Qiu. Bai Qi, Wang Jian, and Wei Liao were innate generals, while Meng Kuo had obtained an innate talent blood crystal from destroying Great Shun and obtained a general star. It seemed that Qin didn't have many historical generals, but Qin had nurtured many generals, such as Zhang De, Xiao Jian, and Chen Man. There were also some outlander generals, such as Doke, Sar, and Daisy. When comparing modern generals to historical generals were definitely more powerful, mainly because of their fate and General Star Master fate. However, historical generals all had their own masters, and they were all extremely loyal. Normally, one would not be able to obtain historical generals through forceful attacks, and could only try to subdue them. After the end of this war, the Qin state resumed its steady development. The first General Assembly officially started. Before, Zhao Fu had asked the residents to choose their own representatives, but because of various things, they hadn't been able to hold it. Now, they finally had time. Once this news spread, the chosen representatives were incredibly delighted. They put on new clothes and tidied themselves up before coming to the newly constructed General Assembly Hall. The General Assembly Hall was completely empty, and there was only a 3-meter tall and 4-meter wide stage. There were stairs on all sides of the stage, and there was a golden chair with 9 dragons carved on it. As an empire, Zhao Fu respected the will of the people. However, it couldn't be like other democracies in the real world, where the emperor was the supreme ruler. As such, there was only 1 seat in the General Assembly Hall. The representatives split into groups of 10 and stood on either side of the stage. There was a 3-meter wide path in the middle that was covered with a red carpet, making it look quite similar to how the emperor would go to court. Following this, Zhao Fu walked into the General Assembly wearing his dragon robe and a crown. Now that they could directly talk to His Majesty about important matters of the empire, countless people suppressed their excitement and immediately knelt on the ground, saying, "Greetings, your majesty." Zhao Fu gave off a dignified, supreme, and noble aura as he walked up the red carpet with his female attendants and Li Si. He then walked onto the stage and sat on the golden chair. Zhao Fu looked at the people kneeling before him and said, "You may all rise. The first General Assembly has officially started. If you have any suggestions, you can raise them, and I will seriously consider them." "Yes, your majesty." The countless representatives replied in unison and stood up. At first, no one dared to speak, but one person mustered up the courage to speak his village's thoughts. Following this, more and more people started to speak. Zhao Fu sat at the top and listened attentively. Beside him, Li Si picked up a piece of paper and a pen and made some simple notes. Because there were so many matters in villages, it was impossible for Zhao Fu to remember them all, so he made some notes. This General Assembly lasted for an entire day before it was adjourned. The countless representatives looked incredibly excited as they left the General Assembly, feeling quite reluctant to leave. No matter what they said, His Majesty would seriously reply to them. When they went back and told everyone about this, the countless residents were incredibly grateful that they had met such a good majesty. Zhao Fu felt quite tired. As expected, internal affairs were not so easy to deal with. He had Li Si record all of the things that had happened, and Qin City's popular support had unknowingly increased by 10 points. Early in the morning, the golden sun slowly rose over the mountains. Another day had arrived, and just as Zhao Fu got up from his bed, he received a piece of good news. Li Wen had been waiting in front of Zhao Fu for a long time. Li Wen was in charge of exploring the underground passageways, killing skeletons, obtaining equipment, martial flames, and the soldier souls that Zhao Fu valued the most. "Your Majesty, this subordinate has gathered 100 soldier souls," Li Wen said with a smile as he bowed to Zhao Fu. When Zhao Fu heard this, he felt quite delighted. With 100 soldier souls, Zhao Fu would be able to fuse another general armament, and Qin City would have 4 general armaments. Of course, the person for this general armament was Meng Tian. Zhao Fu didn't know what kind of general star Meng Tian would awaken, as he was a heavenly spirit general star and had only obtained it through the innate talent blood crystal. Zhao Fu went to the empty area. Because of the terrifying abnormal signs from the last 2 general armaments, Zhao Fu went further away this time. He first started to fuse the soldier souls before calling Meng Tian over. Many people were curious about Qin City's 4th general armament, so they all hurried over. "We greet your majesty." Meng Tian hurried over. She had heard that Zhao Fu was going to fuse a general armament, and she looked quite delighted. Zhao Fu had a trace of a smile on his face as he handed the divine soldier soul to Meng Tian. Meng Tian received the divine soldier soul and started to fuse it. Chapter 392. Meng Tian held the piercing dragon spear and threw it out, causing the 10 divine soldier souls to give off a faint white light and fly into the sky, forming a circle with Meng Tian at the center. After floating in the air, the divine soldier souls gave off a bright white light and became larger and larger. At the same time, the aura they gave off became stronger and stronger, causing the surrounding 10 kilometers to feel a formless pressure. Finally, the 10 divine soldier souls turned into 10 massive orbs of light, and the 10 soldiers' bodies within the orbs gradually melted like snow and turned into traces of violet chi. Boom! An explosion sounded out as the sky trembled. The 10 massive orbs of light started to resonate with each other, and the traces of violet chi continuously flickered within the orbs of light as a formless energy spread out. Immediately, the heavens and earth dimmed as dark clouds quickly gathered. A wild gale blew, causing trees to sway and sand and pebbles to fly as a disaster descended. Standing by the side, a black barrier with dragon inscriptions appeared around Zhao Fu's body, covering him and Shinru to block this terrifying gale. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out in the sky as if it was about to shatter. A violet star giving off brilliant starlight and a boundless aura slowly descended. At that moment, countless espers and espers once again came outside and looked in that familiar direction. Seeing the violet star descend, they couldn't help but feel shocked. The countless legatees could only sigh as they looked at the star. Without even thinking, they knew that apart from Qin, there was no other faction in the northern side that could undo the heavenly seal and return the general star. The factions in the northern side of the Midland continent once again started to panic. Great Qin had just subdued the state of Wei not too long ago, and now the general star had returned. This gave them a massive amount of pressure, making them feel incredibly worried. Back at Qin, after the gigantic violet star slowly descended, Meng Kuo raised the piercing serpent spear with one hand and pointed it towards the sky as he roared, releasing a powerful aura that caused the ground to crack as traces of silver aura rose from Meng Kuo's body. Boom! A few silver lightning arcs flashed around Meng Tian, and a silver pillar of light shot into the sky, colliding with the purple star, causing a huge explosion. The gigantic purple star trembled and gradually turned silver. At this moment, countless people discovered that something was wrong. Looks of astonishment appeared on their faces because they discovered that this wasn't a heavenly dipper star, but one of the 36 heavenly dipper stars. But how can a heavenly dipper star cause such a terrifying phenomenon? Your Highness, this is... Shinru asked Zhao Fu curiously. Zhao Fu looked at the silver star seriously and did not understand what was going on. He could only reply to Shinru, "Let's wait and see." Hearing this, Shinru once again looked towards the silver star in the sky. The violet star in the sky gradually became completely silver and gave off a bright silver light, giving off a tough aura. Suddenly, Meng Kuo felt as if something was about to come out of his body. With a loud roar, a blood-colored aura burst out of his body, spreading out like a tidal wave. The ground began to collapse. Rumble. Bolts of lightning started to descend from the sky, bringing with them a destructive aura that caused people's hairs to stand on end. Suddenly, the sky once again trembled as a silver star, and 3 black stars slowly descended. 4 stars had suddenly appeared, and the aura they gave off seemed to be corporeal, weighing down on countless creatures' bodies. Countless espers and espers looked quite confused, not knowing what was going on. How could 4 general stars suddenly appear? The silver star was originally much larger than the other stars, and the second largest was the silver star. The last 3 black stars were earthly fiend general stars, so they were relatively small. To everyone's astonishment, the other stars moved closer to the largest star and began to fuse with the first star. Pitter-patter, at that moment, the lightning became even more berserk, trying to destroy everything. Bolts of lightning seemed to explode, and when they landed on the ground, they could easily create 10-meter-wide craters. The destructive aura of lightning caused everyone to feel fear, and they couldn't help but tremble. It was evident that the fusion of these general stars was going against the will of the heavens, which was why such terrifying phenomena had appeared. They were trying to destroy everything. The area with the densest amount of lightning was around Meng Tian. Bolts of lightning that were as thick as a person's thigh easily destroyed the ground, scorching it black. Everyone nearby retreated far away, and the only people present were Zhao Fu and Shinru. Zhao Fu unleashed his king's domain with all of his strength, blocking the incoming lightning. Because of Zhao Fu, Shinru was also able to stay here. Meng Tian's body was covered by a silver and blood-red aura flame, and as soon as the lightning came close, it dissipated. Otherwise, Meng Tian would have been in danger. In the sky, as the 4 stars continued to fuse, a green light began to appear like a fluorescent light. Then, the green light became brighter and brighter. In the end, the other 3 stars completely fused with the first star, and the first star became a green star. This massive azure general star gave off a bright starlight that illuminated the ground. The lightning clouds dissipated, and the azure starlight gave off a clear feeling. Countless people had never thought that Qin would use some sort of heaven-defying method to forcefully fuse the general stars. This general star was called the Heaven Pillar Star. The heaven pillar star was righteous and chivalrous, and it was a general star that represented righteousness. It was a general star that represented cooperation, and it was different from the kill, destroy, and wolf stars. It was the core of a kingdom's power, and it could consolidate a kingdom's power. An azure pillar of starlight landed on Meng Tian's body, and under the baptism of the azure pillar of light, Meng Tian started to go through changes. His aura became more and more powerful, and the silver and blood-red auras around him started to disappear, replaced by an azure aura. The azure pillar of starlight gradually became smaller, and the spear that Meng Tian was holding became a jade-like spear. Light flowed around it, and the words Heaven Pillar were engraved on it. Finally, the pillar of starlight completely disappeared, and the azure general star in the sky gradually disappeared. The abnormal signs also disappeared, and the surroundings became peaceful again. Zhao Fu dispelled his king's domain and looked at the charred ground, destroyed trees, and shattered rocks. Luckily, they had come quite far away from Qin City, or else Qin City would have been affected. This time, Zhao Fu hadn't expected that the final general star would be created by fusing a few general stars. Even though it wasn't the kill, destroy, and wolf stars, it was still a very good general star. Chapter 393. Heaven Pillar Spear. Grade. Epic. Stats. Strength plus 20. Intelligence plus 20. Constitution plus 20. Agility plus 20. Description. The legendary grade Piercing Dragon Spear has fused with the Heaven Pillar General Star's power and formed a general armament. Heaven Pillar Spear. The Heaven Pillar Spear's stats were quite comprehensive, perhaps because of the Heaven Pillar Star. At the same time, the Heaven Pillar Spear had 6 stats. The first 5 were General's Power, General's Courage, General's Light, General Soldier, and Soldier Aura Formation. Zhao Fu was quite curious about the 5th, Soldier Aura Formation. Bai Qi had condensed an eagle, Wang Jian had condensed a tiger, and Wei Liao had condensed a wolf. Zhao Fu wondered what Meng Tian would condense. Next was the Heaven Pillar Spear's 6th stat. All-round soldier. Soldiers in this state have their attack power, defense, speed, recovery speed, and resistance to all skills greatly increased. The Heaven Pillar Spear's 6th stat was like its name. It was an all-round soldier that excelled in all aspects and could adapt to all battles. Moreover, it had great resistance to any soldier, godly creature, or other type of creature. Even though the 6th stat wasn't as destructive as the 7 kills army destroyer, and it wasn't as difficult to deal with as the voracious wolf, it was quite comprehensive, and Zhao Fu was quite satisfied with it. The Heaven Pillar Spear looked quite noble. It seemed to be made of jade and was azure. There was a flood dragon engraved on the body of the spear, and the tip of the spear gave off a cold light. It was even more powerful than weapons made of iron, and it gave off an incredibly sharp feeling. After looking at the Heaven Pillar Spear, Zhao Fu returned it to Qin Tian. Now, Qin Feng had 4 general armaments, and all of them were quite powerful and would be of great help in battle. As such, Zhao Fu wanted as many as he could. However, fusing general armaments required soldier souls, which were incredibly rare. They would only appear after a powerful soldier died, and even Qin Tian needed a long time to gather 100 soldier souls. Similarly, Zhao Fu became even more curious about the king armament after gathering 24 general armaments. Your Highness, each of these general armaments can increase the purity of Qin's fate, Zhao Fu said as he returned the Heaven Pillar Spear to Meng Qua. Xianru sensed the changes in Qin's fate and said in shock, "Oh." Zhao Fu felt quite surprised, and he carefully sensed Qin's fate. He found that it was indeed purer than before, and a purer fate was definitely beneficial to a faction. It could make a faction's fate stronger and more condensed, making it more difficult for it to be destroyed. Let's go. This general armament was quite useful, and Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile as he brought everyone back to Qin City. There was not much to do after this, so Zhao Fu went to a small creek and sat cross-legged on the grass. He took out the One World Rod and entered a state of cultivation. However, a few hours later, Li Wenzai's cultivation was interrupted as Li Wenzai once again walked in and reported, "Your Majesty." This time, the team cleared a path and found a ruin. Ruin? Hearing this, Zhao Fu opened his eyes. Every historical remnant had many benefits, especially those with legacies. Zhao Fu had always felt that the underground region was not simple, and he stood up. The one-world rod turned back into the royal wood sword and hung it at his waist. Zhao Fu walked at the front with Li Wen behind him. Zhao Fu asked, "What's going on? What is the ruin like? Have you sent people to investigate it?" After collecting 100 refined martial souls, Li Wen had immediately returned to the surface and given them to Zhao Fu. After giving them to Zhao Fu, Li Wen returned to the underground region and continued to explore the passageway. He had never thought that after clearing the passageway, he would find a ruin. Li Wen had already sent a few soldiers to investigate the ruin, and they had found that there was no danger, so they came to report to Zhao Fu. Soon, Zhao Fu came to the underground region. Before, there had been over 1,000 passageways, but out of consideration for the danger, Zhao Fu had sealed off most of them. Now, after exploring for so long, they had opened up over 100 passageways. Zhao Fu followed Li Wen into a passageway, and just like before, it was pitch black and gave off an eerie aura, making people feel as if they had entered a ghost cave. Now that this passageway had been opened, there was no danger. Zhao Fu walked until he came to a large space, where the other exploration team members were already waiting. Seeing Zhao Fu arrive, they immediately respectfully bowed and called out, "Your Majesty." Zhao Fu nodded and started to look through the ruin. The ruins were 3 miles wide, and there were many buildings in it. Although they were all in ruins, one could vaguely guess that this was a manufacturing workshop, not a residential area, nor a city. There was a thick layer of dust on the ground, and the surroundings were deathly silent to the point that it was terrifying. There were many skeletons on the ground, and their clothes had been corroded by the passage of time. The skeletons here had not become undead, and they did not seem to be dangerous. Zhao Fu walked into the ruin, and Li Wen and the exploration team followed behind him. Zhao Fu looked around, and everything was no longer the same. Zhao Fu walked into the center of the ruin and did not find anything, nor was there any danger. Zhao Fu found a divine dragon diagram with a pair of golden feathered wings here. This place was most likely related to that mysterious empire, and Zhao Fu had always been quite curious about that empire. After all, it had something as heaven-defying as the heaven and earth refining formation, so it definitely would not be simple. It was a pity that even though Zhao Fu had obtained the demon god information, he did not know what this divine dragon diagram represented, nor did he know anything about that empire. Let's not think about that empire for now. What does this manufacturing workshop do? Zhao Fu felt quite curious, and he ordered the others to look around. If they could not find anything, they would return. 10 or so minutes later, a soldier came up and reported, "Your Majesty." This subordinate found a spatial ring on one of the skeletons. A soldier came up and reported, "Your Majesty." This subordinate found a spatial ring on one of the skeletons. Zhao Fu looked at the spatial ring that the soldier handed over. It was a gray-white color and did not have any luster at all. There were also a few cracks on it, and it most likely had been corroded by the passage of time. Zhao Fu did not know what was inside, so he took the spatial ring and looked inside. He found a few clothes, some tools, a blueprint, and a book. Zhao Fu directly ignored the clothes and tools, as they were all quite ordinary. There was nothing special about them, and Zhao Fu took out the book. Zhao Fu looked at the words in the book and found that it was written in a very ancient language that he could not understand. Just as he was about to give up, he suddenly thought of the demon god's information. Chapter 394. The heaven and earth refining formation was a heaven-defying item. It was indeed the source of all disasters. If they found out that Great Qin had a magic formation, Great Qin would perish. Even if Great Qin established a kingdom, it would not be able to resist at all and would definitely lose. They were simply too powerful, and even the powerful Heaven Murder Empire had fallen at their hands in the end. Great Qin had no hope of winning at all. This book recorded most of the information about the mysterious empire. This empire was called the Heaven Murder Empire. It was as powerful as its name. It could kill gods and demons. It could make the sky collapse and the earth shatter. Corpses piled up like mountains and blood flowed like rivers. All living beings died. The Heaven Murder Empire was once one of the most powerful empires in the world. Even gods and Buddhas had to give way to it. Unfortunately, it was destroyed because its enemies were equally terrifying. Now that Qin was involved in such a big trouble, Zhao Fu's face turned pale. Now Qin was related to the Heaven and Earth Refining Formation and the Heaven Murder Empire. Even if Zhao Fu gave up the Heaven and Earth Refining Formation and sealed the underground space, it would be useless. If they knew, they would not hesitate to destroy Great Qin. In front of them, Great Qin was just an ant-like existence. And would a powerful person talk reason with an ant-like existence? This was completely impossible. Zhao Fu's face turned pale. This was the first time that Zhao Fu showed such an expression since he inherited Qin. After a long time, Zhao Fu recovered. In fact, with the heavenly domain boundary, they couldn't do anything to Qin. Besides, it had been a long time since the ancient times. Maybe they were already dead. He didn't need to worry too much. Qin's main goal was to develop. He couldn't give up the Heaven and Earth Refining Formation. Secondly, even if they really attacked, Qin couldn't fight back. Although Qin was weak now, it didn't mean that Qin couldn't surpass the Heaven Murder Empire in the future. As Qin, he shouldn't be afraid of enemies. Qin's blood was the blood of battles. No one could make Qin yield. Even if he died, he wouldn't take a step back. Valiant old Qin, go to war with the nation. Valiant old Qin, recover our country. They would not stop until their blood ran dry. In the north, there was Qin, rising like the sun. 100 years of national hatred. The vicissitudes of life could not be appeased. When the world is in chaos, how can there be peace? Qin has elite soldiers. Who can compete with them? Zhao Fu made up his mind, and his expression returned to normal. By now, the other soldiers had also finished searching, but did not find anything. Following this, Zhao Fu returned to the surface. This book was written in ancient words, so ordinary people would not be able to understand it. If not for the demonic god being a god, he would have grasped a large amount of information, or else Zhao Fu might not have been able to understand it. After returning to the surface, Zhao Fu continued to read the book. The book was quite thick, and it was impossible for Zhao Fu to finish reading it in such a short amount of time. Afterwards, Zhao Fu completely immersed himself in the book, feeling the Heaven Murder Empire's power and culture. A day later, Zhao Fu finished reading the book and rubbed his eyes tiredly before gathering by Qi, Wang Jian, and Wei Liao. This matter was simply too important, and Zhao Fu did not want too many people to know about it. After hearing Zhao Fu's words, Bai Qi, Wang Jian, and Wei Liao looked incredibly shocked. They had never thought that the Heaven and Earth Refining Formation and the underground region would bring them so much trouble. However, now that things had come to this, there was no point in regretting it. At the same time, this was a massive opportunity. The Heaven and Earth Refining Formation and the general armament that he had obtained from killing the skeletons in the underground region would be of great help to Qin. Back then, the Heaven Murder Empire had relied on the Heaven and Earth Refining Formation to refine all things in the world, and Qin would be able to do the same. Following this, Zhao Fu, Bai Qi, Wang Jian, and Wei Liao discussed the matter in detail before concluding their conversation. This was a great deal of pressure, but Qin could not worry too much. The most important thing right now was to focus on the matter at hand. After Bai Qi left, Zhao Fu took out the spatial ring that was about to break. He remembered that there was a blueprint in there, but because the matter recorded in the book was too important, he had forgotten about the blueprint. Zhao Fu took out the blueprint and looked at it. Bone porcelain blueprint, a type of porcelain that is made from bone ash. It is as white as jade and is a high-grade porcelain. The higher the grade of the bone ash, the better the porcelain will be. It turned out that the workshop was a porcelain workshop. Bone porcelain was not something unique to the Heaven Murder Empire, so Qin could refine it without having to worry about his identity being exposed. Suddenly, Zhao Fu thought of the countless skeletons beside the heaven and earth refining formation, and all of them could be refined into bone porcelain. Even though those bones could not be used to make equipment, it would not be a problem to make bone porcelain. That workshop had most likely been built to use those skeletons. After thinking about it, Zhao Fu decided to see what the bone porcelain was like, and he ordered people to find a person who could make porcelain. Soon, a dark-skinned, middle-aged man knelt in front of Zhao Fu and said, "Your Majesty, Commoner Xie Jinfei is here to report. Rise. Can you make this kind of porcelain?" Zhao Fu told Xie Jinfei to get up and handed him the blueprint. Xie Jinfei was Qin's best porcelain master, and if he could not make it, Zhao Fu could only find someone else. There were many procedures recorded on the blueprint, and each step was quite important. Xie Jinfei looked at each step carefully, and after a while, he replied, "Your Majesty, I can give it a try, but I'm not very confident." Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded and ordered people to prepare the materials. There were a lot of bone ashes in the underground space, and they were all of high quality. Of course, to make porcelain, they could not just use bone ashes. They also needed some other materials, such as clay and cold well water, to make bone porcelain. After collecting the materials, Xie Jinfei began to make the porcelain. He first added the bone ashes to the clay, then poured them on the clay, kneaded them, and began to make them on a turntable. With the centrifugal force of the turntable, Xie Jinfei quickly made a vase-shaped embryo. Because one porcelain couldn't prove anything, Xie Jinfei made 2 more, which made a total of 3. Next, it was time to fire them. Xie Jinfei carefully put them into a closed furnace and continuously increased the fire. Time passed bit by bit. A few hours later, Xie Jinfei extinguished the fire in the furnace, opened the furnace, and took out 3 elegant white vases. Seeing these vases, Xie Jinfei smiled and brought them over to Zhao Fu, saying, your Majesty, the porcelain has been successfully fired." Chapter 395. Zhao Fu called Ba Qing over because she was in charge of the business side and had a good eye for things. He told her to see how much the porcelain could be sold for. Of course, Zhao Fu had made this porcelain to sell. Otherwise, why would he spend so much effort to make it? After taking a closer look, Ba Qing smiled and said, "Your Majesty, these bone porcelains are quite good. And selling them for 5 gold coins each shouldn't be a problem." Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile and nodded. A single piece of bone porcelain could be sold for 5 gold coins, which was quite expensive. 5 gold coins was equivalent to 50,000 copper coins. Right now, Qin mainly relied on the Merchant Alliance to continuously provide money to Qin. However, the Merchant Alliance was established on the premise that the regions couldn't interact with each other, and as time passed, the regions would automatically open up. When that time came, the Merchant Alliance would be greatly impacted. Right now, they needed to take all sorts of countermeasures to prevent this from happening. Bone porcelains were a good alternative, and Qin could mass-produce them. The countless bone ashes in the underground space were almost inexhaustible, and Qin would continuously add new bones. Following this, Zhao Fu formed a team of porcelain craftsmen and built a large workshop to mass-produce bone porcelains. Roar! A vigorous dragon's roar sounded out, causing not only Zhao Fu to stop, but countless people also stopped and looked into the distance. Above Great Zhou, a 1,000-meter-long dragon with 9 heads circled in the sky, giving off an incredibly powerful aura. 9-colored light covered the entire sky, forming a beautiful scene. This light also gave off an ancient and noble aura, making people feel respect from the bottom of their hearts. The entirety of Great Zhou's territory gave off traces of different colored auras, and all of Great Zhou's residents knelt down. The 9-colored pillar of light at the center of the city gradually disappeared. A resplendent 9-colored dot of light appeared at the center of Great Zhou City. The city heart continuously trembled, giving off a formless energy that entered the 9-colored dot of light. The nine-colored dot of light continuously became stronger and flashed with dazzling nine-colored light. Boom! The nine-headed dragon gave off a massive aura as it rushed down and entered the nine-colored mode of light. A blinding light exploded out as a massive explosion sounded out in the sky. After the light disappeared, a square jade seal with a nine-headed dragon carved on it appeared in the sky. Ji Shunming waved his hand, and the jade seal turned into a stream of light and flew in front of him. Ji Shunming carefully looked at the jade seal, and a smile appeared on his face. He had been patiently developing for so long, and now he had finally caught up to Qin and was promoted to a city after Qin. The surrounding Great Zhou's generals all congratulated Ji Shunming. Now that they had city lord seals, Great Zhou's battle strength was much greater than before. The Great Zhou city's upgrade was completed, and the entire Great Zhou was immersed in joy. But at this moment, another dragon's roar reverberated throughout China. Above Great Xia, a 1,000-meter-long golden dragon gave off a heaven-shaking roar and gave off a boundless aura as it circled in the sky. The entire sky was dyed golden, and it gave off a holy and majestic aura. As China's legatee, this golden dragon's roar was not only heard by the various legatees, but also the ordinary people, causing them to look into the distance. All of Great Xia City and its territory gave off traces of golden aura, and all of Great Xia's residents knelt down. The golden pillar of light that shot into the sky from the center of Great Xia City turned into countless golden motes of light and disappeared. Only a resplendent golden of light remained at the center of Great Xia City. The city heart continuously trembled, giving off a formless energy that entered the golden dot of light. The nine-colored dot of light continuously became stronger and shined with a brilliant golden light. Boom! The golden dragon gave off a massive aura as it rushed down and entered the golden dot of light. A blinding golden light exploded out, causing the sky to seem to twist as a square golden seal with a divine dragon carved on it appeared in the sky. Countless people had never thought that two dynasty legatees would level up into basic cities so quickly, and as they watched in shock, another massive dragon's roar sounded out. Above Great Shang, a 1,000-meter-long bronze dragon gave off a heaven-tearing roar as it domineeringly circled in the sky. The sky was dyed azure, and there were faint runes flashing in the sky, forming an incredibly powerful might that spread out in all directions, giving off a mysterious and powerful feeling. Traces of azure aura continuously rose up from Great Shang's territory, and all of Great Shang's residents knelt down. At the center of Great Shang, an azure pillar of light suddenly exploded. A bronze dot of light floated above Great Shang, and the city heart continuously trembled, giving off a formless energy that entered the bronze dot. The bronze dot gave off a metallic azure light that seemed to be able to tear apart the sky. Boom! The bronze dragon gave off a massive aura as it rushed down and entered the bronze. After the intense azure light disappeared, a square bronze seal with a divine dragon carved on it appeared in the sky. Before anyone could react, another massive dragon's roar sounded out. Above Great Shang, a 1,000-meter-long yellow dragon circled in the sky, giving off a gentle and grand aura. Traces of yellow aura continuously rose up from Great Han City, and all of Great Han City's residents knelt down. The yellow pillar of light at the center of Great Han City gradually disappeared. A resplendent yellow mote of light remained at the center of Great Han City, and the city heart continuously trembled, giving off a formless energy that entered the yellow mote of light. The yellow mote of light continuously became stronger and gave off a brilliant yellow light. Boom! The yellow dragon in the sky gave off a massive aura as it rushed down and entered the yellow mote of light. A massive explosion sounded out and a wild gale spread out as a yellow jade seal with a dragon engraved on it appeared in the sky. Now that the four dynasty legatees had successfully constructed cities and condensed city lord seals, They put a massive amount of pressure on the other legatees. The situation became quite tense, and it was not just in China, but in the entire world. China's 5 dynasty legatees had taken the lead in establishing cities. Even though they had not established a kingdom yet, they had already begun the age of city lords, and they were preparing for the warring states period. As such, all of the large factions in the world had to quickly level up their cities into basic cities, or else they would fall behind. The gap between them would only become greater and greater, and the only outcome would be destruction. Chapter 396. Within the Wang family's residence, on a small path, a few youths dressed in luxurious clothes gave mocking smiles as they stopped an ordinary-looking youth. Slap! One of the youths walked up and viciously slapped the ordinary-looking youth's face. The ordinary-looking young man took a few steps back from the slap. He felt a burning pain on his face, which made him want to cry. His eyes became moist, and before he could steady himself, he was kicked to the ground again. Wang Xiaozhu, you dare to disobey us? You're just a collateral family member, and in front of us, you're just a dog. One of the youths walked up and stepped on Wang Xiaozhu's head, which was the ordinary-looking youth. The other noble-looking youth stood at the side and laughed loudly. Wang Xiaozhu's head was forcefully stomped on the ground, but he did not move, allowing them to step on him. He did not resist, nor did he struggle, because resisting would only lead to more painful beatings, and he might even endanger his family. The youths had been smiling, but when they saw that Wang Xiaozhu didn't react at all, they went up and kicked him a few times. Wang Xiaozhu didn't cry out or make any sounds of pain, so they felt bored and left. After they left, Wang Xiaozhu endured the pain and humiliation and crawled up from the ground. His eyes were filled with hatred as he looked at the youths who had left. Wang Xiaozhu's identity was quite special. He had been the child of a player's servant, but because he had the Wang family's bloodline, he had been promoted to a collateral family member. However, this promotion did not benefit him at all. After all, he was the child of a servant and had been bullied by the disciples of the main family since he was young. Even though he had been promoted to a collateral family member, his status was still very low. When he was bullied, his parents could only tell him to endure it. After all, they had high statuses, while others had low statuses, and they couldn't afford to offend them. At a very young age, Wang Xiaozhu also understood this principle, and his thoughts were far more mature than those of his age. He also longed to get rid of this identity and become someone above others. At the same time, Wang Xiaozhu's hatred for the Wang clan continued to grow day by day. But opportunities don't come so easily. If I don't have an opportunity, I'll be a lowly person for the rest of my life. I'll never be able to stand out, and I'll just have to endure the Wang family's humiliation. Wang Xiaozhu definitely didn't want to continue living like her parents. Patting off the dust on his body, Wang Xiaozhu acted as if nothing had happened. He walked over to the dining area, specially prepared for the direct descendants of the Wang clan, and helped out by serving wine and dishes. At the same time, he also cleaned up the area. The pay for helping here was very high, and one could earn quite a lot of money. Of course, Wang Xiaozhu's goal was not just money. As a collateral disciple, he did not have to worry about food and clothing. Wang Xiaozhu had another reason for coming here. Usually, when he did things, he would carefully remember the conversations of the direct disciples. Since there was no chance for him, he would create one for himself. Today, when he was serving food, he heard a direct disciple say that there was a mountain in the east that looked like a woman lying on it. Wang Xiaozhu secretly noted it down. After returning to his room, Wang Xiaozhu entered the heaven-awakened world and recorded this information in a notebook. He had already memorized a lot of this information. Following this, Zhao Fu took out a crudely drawn map that was covered with many symbols. Zhao Fu took these things to a cave outside the system, main city, and teleported to a region. He had been preparing for this opportunity this entire time, and he had long since learned how to construct teleportation channels. After teleporting a few times, Wang Xiaozhu arrived at a tall mountain. Suddenly, he saw a small town in the distance, and there was a mountain that looked like a woman lying on it. Seeing this, Wang Xiaozhu couldn't help but laugh inwardly. He had been searching for the Wang family's residence this entire time, and as a collateral disciple, he naturally didn't have the right to know where it was. As such, he had continuously gathered information and confirmed it. Since there was no opportunity, he would create one. Not only would he destroy the Wang family, but he would also be able to rise to the top. Back at Qin City, an assassin from Qin City walked into the hall and reported, "Your Majesty, we found someone who might know where the state of Zheng is. We found someone who might know the location of the state of Zheng, but he said he wanted to meet you in person." Qin City was currently spending a lot of effort to find the locations of the various legatees because the era of city lords had begun. Over the past few days, it wasn't just China's 5 great dynasties, but even some foreign dynasties were continuously building cities, so time was becoming more and more pressing. Attacking a small town was much easier than attacking a small city, and Zhao Fu couldn't give them a chance to develop. As such, he had to destroy them as soon as possible. After hearing about this, Zhao Fu felt quite confused. Why did this person want to meet with him? Zhao Fu felt quite confused as he went to that region and walked into a hidden room. When Wang Xiaozhu saw a cloaked person walk in, he gave off a powerful aura and gave off an incredibly noble and supreme aura. He immediately understood who this person was, and he had never thought that this person would be willing to meet with a lowly person like him. "This lowly one, I greet Emperor Qin's city," Wang Xiaozhu said as he lowered his head and bowed. Zhao Fu felt quite surprised. The person who wanted to meet him was a 16 or 17-year-old young man who already knew his identity. "How do you know that I'm Emperor Qin's city?" Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he asked. Wang Xiaozhu confidently raised his head and said, "Apart from Emperor Qin's city, there's no one else in the northern continent who can destroy the state of Zheng, nor would they pay such a great price to find all of the state legatees." Even though Wang Xiaozhu's status was quite low, he knew a lot about the internet, and he had long since confirmed all of the information about Emperor Qin's city. Ever since Qin City had destroyed Great Shun City, he had started to make plans. When Zhao Fu heard this, he couldn't refute this reason, and he felt that this young man was quite scheming. As such, Zhao Fu didn't waste any more words and asked, "What do you want?" Wang Xiaozhu didn't hide his intentions and replied, "Your Majesty, I need a silver grade city creation stone and 20,000 gold coins. I need a silver grade city creation stone and 20,000 gold coins. Also, I want you to agree to one of my requests." "I can agree to the first 2 requests, but what's the last one?" After hearing Wang Xiaozhu's words, the first 2 requests weren't worth mentioning at all compared to conquering the state of Zheng. However, Zhao Fu had to be careful about the last request. He couldn't casually agree to someone else's request. After all, a sovereign's word was worth more than 1,000 taels of gold, so he had to do as he said. Chapter 397. I ask that your Majesty slaughter all of the Wang family's direct descendants, not only in the heaven-awakened world, but also in the real world. Wang Xiaozhu spoke with hatred and killing intent. It was difficult to imagine that this young man would have such hatred and killing intent. It was not something that people of the same age could have. Hearing this, Zhao Fu thought about it. Attacking the state of Zheng would definitely mean killing everyone in the Wang family, which was not a problem. However, doing so in the real world would be quite difficult. First, the real world still maintained its order, which could not be broken. Otherwise, the real world would collapse, and the world would enter the apocalypse, which would not be good for anyone. Moreover, as a nation legacy faction, the Wang family was a local tyrant. Even if they used the Ying family's power, it would not be easy to get rid of them. Zhao Fu looked at this young man, filled with hatred. He did not know how much enmity this young man had with the Wang family, but he only cared about benefits. He said, "I can kill everyone in the Wang family in the heaven-awakened world." Wang Xiaozhu thought about it and asked, "Your Majesty, if the heaven-awakened world devours the real world, will you kill everyone in the Wang family?" Zhao Fu did not think much before replying, "I will." If Qin wanted to destroy the state of Zheng, he would have to destroy the Wang family. After all, the enmity from destroying a country would be incredibly deep, so he had to get rid of the Wang family by the roots. After hearing this, Wang Xiaozhu smiled and handed a map to Zhao Fu, saying, "Your Majesty, this is where the state of Zheng is." Zhao Fu took the map and looked at it. It was a rough map that was quite blurry, but it had a detailed introduction and teleportation channels. Zhao Fu handed it to Qin's assassin and had him confirm it. Qin's assassin took the map and quickly left, and everyone waited. Wang Xiaozhu silently waited by the side, not daring to say anything. He had heard on the internet that Qin's legatee was incredibly cruel and bloodthirsty, and his hands were stained with the blood of hundreds of thousands of people. It was best for him to be careful. The room fell silent, and time gradually passed. After a while, Qin's assassin returned and reported, "Your Majesty, we verified that this place belongs to the state of Zheng. This place belongs to a town in the state of Zheng." Zhao Fu gave a trace of smile and took out a spatial ring and threw it at Wang Xiaozhu as he said, "The things you want are in there." Wang Xiaozhu happily caught the storage ring and looked inside. He found that it was filled with shiny gold coins and a silver Rubik's Cube. Wang Xiaozhu couldn't help but feel excited. This was the capital he would need in the future. Don't be like your parents and swallow your anger. You can also build your own force, obtain glory, splendor, wealth, and the highest power. After getting the location of the state of Zheng, Zhao Fu didn't care about Wang Xiaozhu's expression at this moment. He left the room with Qin and the others. He also ordered people to follow Wang Xiaozhu to prevent him from divulging the information of the state of Zheng again and to guard against any conspiracy. It was always better to be careful. Afterward, Zhao Fu gathered all the information he could about Zheng. The state of Zheng was a kingdom at the end of the Sui dynasty, and it had been established by Wang Shicheng. Wang Shicheng had been a general of the Sui dynasty and held a high position. After Emperor Yang of Sui was killed, he made the king of Yang Tong the emperor, deposed Yang Tong. He established the state of Zheng, but he was defeated by Li Shimin of the Tang dynasty, and the state of Zheng was destroyed. The state of Zheng had only been established for a short period of time, and it was a kingdom in a chaotic era. It didn't have much fate, and the legacies of a kingdom in a chaotic era usually didn't have much fate. There was enmity between the state of Zheng and Great Tang, but Zhao Fu still wanted to destroy it. Even though he was doing Great Tang a favor, there was nothing he could do about it. It wasn't easy for the state of Zheng to obtain its position. The state of Zheng's factions were the same as other factions, and they were split into village residences and system residences. The system residences had 40,000 or so players, and they weren't as well managed as the state of Wei. Players weren't as loyal to the state of Zheng, but there were still some who were diehard. Qin's assassin went through the village residences and found that they had fewer people than the state of Wei, only 50,000 or so, and their military strength was slightly weaker. After returning to Qin, Zhao Fu ordered people to gather the soldiers. After receiving the order, the soldiers quickly gathered, which made the ordinary residents of Qin feel quite strange. Recently, there had been many large gatherings of soldiers, most likely because the situation was quite tense. As such, many residents sent the soldiers off, hoping that they would return victorious. After Wang Xiaozhu and Zhao Fu finished their transaction, they didn't find Qin's assassin following them. This was mainly because Qin's assassin was quite skilled, but he was also quite young and inexperienced. Zhao Fu had already given the order that if he did anything to harm Qin, the assassin following him would immediately kill him. However, Wang Xiaozhu didn't plan to do that. He hated the Wang family the most, and he had finally obtained an opportunity to have Qin's legatee destroy the Wang family. How could he make trouble for them? After obtaining the city creation stone and the 30,000 gold coins, Wang Xiaozhu suppressed his excitement and didn't use them for now because he needed to make some plans. For example, where should he establish a village and how to develop his faction? Especially the 30,000 gold coins. They were a massive sum of money, and he had to be careful when using them to avoid being discovered. At the same time, he couldn't tell his parents about this, or else he would be killed in the real world. After thinking about it, Wang Xiaozhu realized that Qin's legatee was most likely gathering soldiers to attack the state of Zheng. As such, he decided not to stay in the heaven-awakened world for now, so he returned to the real world. After returning to the real world, Wang Xiaozhu did everything as usual. He couldn't afford to do anything abnormal, or else he might be discovered and lose his life. However, no matter how they thought about it, they wouldn't think that I was the one who leaked the information. No one had ever told him where the state of Zheng was, and he hadn't asked about it either. He had only gathered bits and pieces of information before finally finding it. How could they find out that he was the one who had leaked the information? Wang Xiaozhu was quite confident in this. Wang Xiaozhu went to the restaurant for the main family disciples and helped out. He did everything the same as before and didn't do anything out of the ordinary. At that moment, the main family disciples who often bullied him purposely kicked him and laughed before leaving. Even though Wang Xiaozhu looked as if he was enduring it, he was inwardly coldly laughing. The Wang family was going to perish at their own hands. All of the main family members of the Wang family deserved to die. Indeed, the Wang family hadn't expected a disaster to befall them, nor had they thought that the location of the village had been leaked. They felt that they had done a good job of keeping a secret. The Wang family continued to do what they were doing, and they weren't on guard at all. In fact, the state of Zheng's legatee hadn't even entered the heaven-awakened world yet, and everything seemed quite peaceful. Chapter 398. The state of Zheng was on flat land, and there were 10 or so villages around it. Because of the flat land, one could see large tracts of grain fields and many fruit trees. The city walls were 10 meters tall, but they were not made from mountain rocks but from fired bricks. They were not as rough and imposing as mountain rocks, and they were more elegant and reserved. The sun had just set, and the afterglow of the setting sun fell on these villages, making them seem peaceful and peaceful. Attack! A cold voice broke this peace, and a black flood rushed towards these villages. The sound of footsteps was like thunder, shaking the surroundings. The villagers, who had been busy for the whole day and had returned to the village in exhaustion, saw this scene. They didn't even have time to rest, and they didn't care about their exhaustion as they shouted in fear, "Quick, go to the town!" Countless villagers abandoned everything else and pulled their families as they ran towards the state of Zheng's town. With so many enemies attacking, it was impossible for their village of a few hundred people to defend. Only by entering the town would they be able to survive. By now, Qin's isolation barrier had long since been set up, and no teleportation channels could be used. As such, they could only rely on running. At the same time, some people did not want to leave and wanted to defend the village. They set up some simple defenses outside the village and picked up their weapons. However, the Black Flood was incredibly cold and merciless, and everything seemed incredibly weak in front of it. The Black Flood gave off a terrifying aura that seemed to be able to destroy everything, and it instantly inundated the village. Cries, shouts, and sounds of fighting sounded out for a short moment before coming to a sudden stop. After the flood passed, the village was covered with corpses, and blood dyed the ground red. The golden setting sun fell on the corpses filled with terror, creating a twisted scene that did not seem to belong to the human world. How could these people outrun Qin's cavalrymen? Before long, Qin's cavalrymen had caught up to them. Qin's cavalrymen did not show any mercy towards these villagers, and they swung their sabers to kill anyone they saw. Anyone who showed even a trace of mercy towards their enemies was not worthy of being a soldier of Qin's. Those who had set up defenses to defend the village were dealt a heavy blow. The war horses were incredibly powerful, and they broke through the wooden fences. The defenses were completely useless, and the villagers could only use their weapons to resist. However, they were instantly drowned by the unstoppable cavalry. In just a few moves, they were all dead, leaving behind a pile of corpses. The state of Zheng's legatee, Wang Xiao, who was in the real world, quickly returned to the heaven-awakened world. After hearing about this, the entire Wang family started to panic. When Wang Xiaozhu saw this, he sneered in his heart. The resentment in his heart dissipated significantly, and he felt much better. Wang Jian, Wei Liao, Meng Tian, The three of you will each take 20,000 soldiers and launch feint attacks from the south, west, and north. After destroying these villages, Zhao Fu gave out the battle plan. The Black Torrent had split into three groups, each heading in a different direction. The state of Zheng had long since closed its gates, and soldiers had come to guard the city walls. At the same time, many of the young and strong people in the town were recruited. At the same time, the defenders moved out countless boulders and trees, preparing to throw them down when the enemy attacked the city. On the eastern city wall, Wang Xiao looked at the countless enemies surrounding the state of Zheng. Wang Xiao's expression was quite serious, and he could already guess who these people were. Qin had been quite active recently, and they had just destroyed the state of Wei. He had never thought that they would set their sights on the state of Zheng so quickly. Why is the state of Qin attacking the state of Zheng? The state of Zheng has never formed any enmity with the state of Qin, nor have we joined any Qin resistance alliance. Please give me an explanation. With a massive army bearing down on the state of Zheng, Wang Xiao felt that it would be very difficult to defeat Qin. He knew that Qin had come with ill intentions, but he still had to say this. Even if the state of Zheng suffered some losses, it would be best to negotiate without using force. As long as the state of Zheng was protected, anything was fine. Moreover, by saying this, he would appear to be on the side of justice and increase morale. In other words, he had not offended the state of Zheng, so why were they attacking him? Since they were attacking him, he could only retaliate. By standing on the side of justice, morale would naturally rise, and his battle strength would also increase. Under this oppressive and austere atmosphere, Zhao Fu rode on Little Black and slowly walked out from the crowd. He looked at the city walls and replied, "It's just the law of the jungle." This was a world where the strong preyed on the weak, and there was no right or wrong. Zhao Fu's words caused Qin's soldiers to become even more resolute. There is no right or wrong in this world, nor is there good or evil. There is only the strong and the weak, and only by continuously becoming stronger and stronger is the way of thinking of an empire. Zhao Fu's simple words caused Wang Xiao to be speechless. What did it matter if Qin was right or wrong? If he wanted to destroy them, he would destroy them. Wang Xiao felt quite angry, but this was a world where strength spoke. Suddenly, beast roars sounded out from the north, south, east, and west. In the west, Wang Jian raised the army destroyer sword and roared, "Soldier aura formation." The army destroyer sword gave off a terrifying black light, and the soldiers led by Wang Jian started to give off a black aura that rushed towards Wang Jian, forming a ferocious black tiger. In the south, Wei Liao also roared, and the greedy wolf sword in his hand gave off a faint green light. Countless traces of green aura rose from the soldiers' bodies and formed a cruel green wolf. Finally, in the north, Meng Tian raised the Heaven Pillar spear and pointed it toward the sky as he roared, "Heaven Pillar!" The spear in Meng Tian's hand gave off rays of intense azure light, and his aura continuously became stronger. The soldiers felt as if their bodies were being summoned, and they roared as countless traces of azure aura rose from their bodies. After the azure aura rose from the soldiers' bodies, it quickly gathered above Meng Tian's head, and in just a few moments, a 30-meter wide azure ball of mist appeared in the sky, giving off a shocking aura. A ray of azure light shot out from the Heaven Pillar spear into the ball of mist, causing it to continuously condense, and its aura became stronger and stronger. Moo! A massive cow's moo sounded out as the azure ball of mist dissipated, and an incredibly powerful and oppressive azure cow appeared in the sky. The three teams did not directly attack the city, as their main task was to feign an attack. After forming the three massive beasts, they did not attack the city walls, but instead started to attack the people on the city walls. Seeing the massive beasts rushing towards them, the soldiers on the city walls immediately wanted to use arrows to attack the massive beasts. However, before they could draw their bows, Qin shot out countless arrows, which drew arcs in the air and shot towards the city walls. Instantly. Chapter 399. The state of Zheng's population was only 50,000 or so, and they only had 10,000 soldiers. Now, they had to face attacks from 4 different directions, which meant that there were only 2,000 soldiers and thousands of residents on each side of the city walls. However, they had to face 20,000 Qin soldiers, and just the first wave of attacks had already caused 1/5 of the state of Zheng soldiers to die. Following this, the 3 of them once again attacked. Qin's arrows were more powerful, allowing them to shoot further and more accurately, successfully suppressing the city guards. The 3 massive beasts in the sky took this opportunity to attack the city guards on the city walls. Even though the city guards also took this opportunity to attack the massive beasts, their cultivations were too weak, and they could only slightly exhaust the massive beasts. Moments later, the state of Zheng soldiers on the 3 city walls had already lost 2/5 of their forces, and they all called for help. Wang Xiao stood on the eastern city wall, and when he heard this news, his heart sank. However, he could not leave the eastern city wall. This was because the other 3 city walls only had to face 20,000 Qin soldiers, while his city wall had to face 60,000 soldiers. What's more, Emperor Qin was in charge, making it even more dangerous. As such, Wang Xiao could not leave, and he could only give the order to gather more residents. At that moment, traces of gray, ghostly qi spread out, and the atmosphere became eerie and eerie. Wang Xiao, who had just given the order, was unknowingly covered by the ghostly qi. He immediately felt that something was off, and the soldiers around him froze as expressions of fear appeared on their faces. There were even some soldiers wildly swinging their sabers, as if they were running away from something. Wang Zhao's body gave off a blue light, and as soon as the ghostly qi came close, it was like snow in winter meeting the spring sun. It immediately dissipated, and the ghostly qi did not affect Wang Xiao at all. Seeing that the dark ghost world had been successfully cast, Zhao Fu gave the order, "Fire the fire arrows." Zhao Fu did not expect to obtain many people from attacking nation legatees. After all, with the nation legatees' resistance, they would not be able to obtain many people. As such, Zhao Fu did not have to worry about using fire arrows. Even if he could not kill them, he could burn them to death. Moreover, even if the state of Zheng's town was burned down, Zhao Fu would not care. At most, he would lose some material gains. Zhao Fu only needed the state of Zheng's legacy stone and its fate. Flaming arrows shot toward the city walls like meteors. Roar! A dragon's roar sounded out as a blue barrier appeared, blocking a small portion of the fire arrows. Wang Zhao's body gave off a blue light as he furiously stood on the city walls. Because the ghostly qi that came near him dissipated, Zhao Fu was able to see him. The dark ghost world was quite useful against other people, but it was not so useful against people and things that specialized in restraining ghosts. For example, it was useless against kings, and ordinary illusions would only slightly affect kings. Wang Xiao felt quite furious, but he could tell that the state of Zheng had pretty much lost. As such, he suppressed his anger and yelled, "Great Qin's legatee, as long as my state of Zheng survives, I'll agree to any condition." Zhao Fu felt quite surprised that Wang Xiao would take such a step back, but Zhao Fu still refused. After all, the promise that the state of Zheng would not be destroyed did not mean that he would submit to Great Qin, but that he would pay any price for Great Qin to spare the state of Zheng. Of course, Zhao Fu refused. How could Zhao Fu give up such a fat piece of meat that was already in his mouth? Facing Zhao Fu's blatant refusal, Wang Xiao felt quite furious, and a blue aura flame burst out, exploding out with terrifying power as it turned into a blue ray of light and shot toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu coldly laughed, but didn't do anything. Beside him, Bai Qi waved his hand, and the countless archers obeyed. Swish, swish, swish. Countless arrows tore through the air as they shot towards Wang Xiao. Seeing so many arrows, Wang Xiao was shocked. He stretched out his hand and released a blue barrier of light. However, the countless arrows struck the barrier of light like rain. In just a moment, the blue barrier of light shattered, and Wang Xiao immediately released another barrier of light and began to dodge. In the end, Wang Zhao's right arm was hit by an arrow, and he fled back to the city wall. Consuming fate could allow one to obtain immense power for a short period of time, but this power was not limitless. Even if Zhao Fu didn't use his nation armament, he wouldn't dare to face 60,000 soldiers head-on. In this world, one could be invincible and could kill countless people, just like a godly spirit. However, even a godly spirit could be killed as long as there were enough people and enough power. Wang Xiao retreated back to the city wall, feeling quite afraid. That rain of arrows was simply too shocking, and he couldn't just charge over. Wang Xiao raised his sword and pointed it at Zhao Fu as he yelled, "Legatee Qin, do you dare to fight?" Wang Xiao was thinking that if he could defeat Qin's legatee, not only would the state of Zheng be able to resolve this crisis, but the state of Zheng would also obtain Qin's fate and dominate the world. Of course, this was just Wang Zhao's wishful thinking. A legatee definitely couldn't defeat a dynasty legatee, as a dynasty legatee had an incredibly terrifying item, which was a nation armament. However, Zhao Fu didn't have any plans to use his nation armament, as it was not easy to obtain fate. In fact, Zhao Fu didn't even bother with Wang Zhao's challenge and ordered his soldiers to continue shooting arrows. The flaming arrows gave off an incredibly sharp aura as they continued to fly towards the city wall. Wang Xiao was infuriated that he had been completely ignored. He raised his saber and roared as a blue pillar of light exploded out, shooting into the clouds. A massive aura spread out, shaking the heavens. Roar! A 60 or so meter long blue dragon appeared and gave off a dragon's roar that sounded out for dozens of kilometers, causing countless creatures to flee in fear. Zhao Fu looked at the blue dragon and found that it was only 60 or so meters long, which meant that it didn't have much fate. Seeing the dark ghost world slowly dissipate, Zhao Fu didn't hesitate and decided to release his fate dragon to suppress it. However, at that moment, a soldier came to report that there were less than 2,000 soldiers defending in the north, south, east, and west directions. Hearing this, Zhao Fu gave up on using the fate dragon because using the fate dragon would consume a bit of fate. Zhao Fu ordered Wang Jian and the others to return to the eastern city wall and gave command to the other generals to find a good opportunity to attack. After saying this, Zhao Fu turned to look at Bai Qi. Bai Qi understood and nodded. He drew the 7 murders sword at his waist and roared as a blood-red sword light shot into the sky. Countless soldiers gave off traces of blood-red aura and rushed towards Bai Qi. Soon, a massive blood-red eagle, giving off a massive aura of killing, flew towards Wang Xiao. Chapter 400. Scree. The blood-red eagle gave a piercing cry as it spread its wings and attacked, its iron claws swiping at the blue dragon in the sky. The blue dragon was only 60 or so meters long, and it looked quite small. The blood-red eagle that Bai Qi had condensed from 60,000 soldiers was 30 meters long, which was only half the size of the blue dragon. Facing the blood-red eagle's attack, the blue dragon twisted its body and slammed into the blood-red eagle. A muffled explosion sounded out as the blood-red eagle was sent flying, but quickly stabilized itself in the air. This time, the blue dragon was not able to deal much damage to the blood-red eagle. The blood-red eagle did not continue to attack. After all, this was the fate dragon of a nation's legacy. Even though it was still small and did not have much fate, it was not something that the blood-red eagle could deal with by itself. However, as the other 3 massive beasts arrived, the situation became different. The blood-red eagle once again attacked, swooping down with immense power as it pecked at the blue dragon. Facing such a ferocious attack, the blue dragon dodged to the side. However, the massive black tiger also ferociously leapt towards the blue dragon. The blue dragon swung its tail, sending the black tiger flying. At that moment, the voracious wolf also leapt over and ferociously bit the blue dragon. The giant cyan bull mustered all its strength and charged at the blue divine dragon. It rammed into the blue divine dragon, causing the blue divine dragon's body to wobble momentarily in the air. Because the three beasts had been condensed from 20,000 soldiers, they were quite small, only 10 or so meters long. However, they were still able to deal great damage to the blue dragon. After being attacked in two places, the blue dragon roared and vigorously swung its body, sending the voracious wolf flying. It then opened its mouth and bit towards the green bull. Boom! At that moment, the blood-red eagle once again swooped down with immense power, causing the air to explode as its incredibly sharp blood-red claws slashed into the blue dragon's body. After being heavily injured, the blue dragon roared and bit towards the blood-red eagle. The five giant beasts fought in the sky, creating gusts of wind. Their auras were extremely shocking, and the battle was extremely intense. However, overall, the Qin side had a great advantage because it was 4 against 1. Wang Zhao's expression was quite unsightly. He had never thought that his fate dragon would be suppressed by 4 massive beasts. Moreover, the other side didn't even bother to release their fate dragons. This was a great humiliation to him. Riding on Little Black, Zhao Fu looked at Wang Xiao with his blood-red eyes, and the king's seal appeared on the back of his right hand as he said, "Little Sha, Little Qing, go kill him." Suddenly, 2 figures burst out with powerful auras and rushed out from the crowd. They quickly ran towards the city wall like black shadows. With a few leaps, they jumped onto the city wall and started attacking Wang Xiao. Facing the fierce attacks of the two, Wang Xiao did not dare to be careless. He used all his strength to counter the attacks of the two. The command of the 3 other sides of the city wall was now given to Zhang Du, Xiao Jian, and Old Loke. Seeing that the defending soldiers were still hiding in the buildings and not willing to come out, Zhang Du ordered the archers to attack on their own. Attacking on their own accord meant that the archers would be able to attack as they pleased. They would not have to listen to orders, and they would all attack at once. This made it easier for them to attack scattered enemies. Following this, Zhang Du gave the order to attack, and 20,000 soldiers quickly rushed towards the city wall, their roars sounding like thunder as they charged. Hearing this, the state of Zheng's defending soldiers prepared to counterattack. However, every time they revealed themselves, an arrow would shoot at them. Moreover, there were less than 2,000 people on the city wall. There were not many of them, and they were quite sparse, so they were not able to provide much help. By now, the Qin soldiers had reached the bottom of the city wall and set up ladders. They quickly climbed up the city wall, and they had to act quickly. After all, attacking a city was a matter of life and death, and it was easy to be attacked while climbing ladders. Some of the defending soldiers risked their lives and threw heavy objects at the ladders, but it was useless. There were thousands of archers at the bottom of the city wall, and it was evident that the 2,000 defending soldiers were not a match for the 20,000 archers. Before, they were inferior to the Qin soldiers in all aspects, and now, even their morale had been crushed. As such, the state of Zheng's defending soldiers were doomed to lose. Not only did many of the Qin soldiers use ladders to climb up the city wall, but there were also many skilled soldiers who used chains to climb up the city wall. Soon, they took control of the city wall and opened the gates, allowing all of the soldiers to enter the state of Zheng's town. The other 2 groups of Qin soldiers also quickly took down the city wall and paid a small price to enter the state of Zheng's town. By now, there were not many people left in the state of Zheng's town. There had originally been 50,000 people, and now there were only 10,000 or so elderly, children, and women left. Right now, the Qin soldiers' mission was to take control of the state of Zheng's town. The Qin soldiers did not kill those who surrendered, and those who resisted were killed regardless of gender or age. When the Qin soldiers entered the state of Zheng's town, the city heart released a 50-meter wide blue energy barrier to protect itself. The 3 groups of Qin soldiers split up and quickly took control of the state of Zheng's town. Now, only the city hall was not under control. Because of the blue energy barrier, the 60,000 Qin soldiers were unable to break through it. As such, The three groups of Qin soldiers gathered with the main army on the east side and surrounded the state of Zheng's town. If they killed Wang Xiao, the energy barrier would automatically break. On the east side of the town wall, Wang Xiao ferociously slashed at Tuoba Qing with a saber. Tuoba Qing immediately used her blood-red sword to block, but Wang Xiao roared as his aura suddenly changed, and he forcefully pushed Tuoba Qing back 10 or so meters. However, Little Sha appeared behind Wang Xiao and slashed with his dagger, leaving a long gash on Wang Xiao's body. Wang Xiao roared in pain and turned to attack Little Sha. There were many wounds on Wang Xiao's body, and they were all caused by Little Sha and Tuoba Qing. It wasn't just Wang Xiao. Even the blue dragon in the sky was injured by the four massive beasts' combined attacks. "All of you stand down," an indifferent voice suddenly sounded, causing everyone to stiffen and withdraw from the battle one after another. Now, Wang Xiao was like an arrow at the end of its flight and was no longer a threat. It was time to reap the fruits of victory. Zhao Fu stood in the air, giving off a powerful and terrifying aura. His black cloak fluttered in the wind, making it impossible to see what he looked like. However, under the cloak were a pair of blood-red eyes that gave off a devilish aura. Arc. Chapter 401. Facing Wang Zhao's attack, Zhao Fu stood in the air and waved his hand, causing 3 chains to shoot out from the ground and ferociously shoot towards Wang Xiao. Wang Xiao slashed out with his saber, sending out a large wave of blue saber light that sent the 3 chains flying. Zhao Fu waved his hand again, causing 3 chains to shoot out from behind Wang Xiao. They contained shocking power as they tried to pierce through Wang Zhao's body. However, Wang Xiao slashed out with a terrifying saber light, sending the 3 chains flying. It was as if the iron chains could not reach Wang Xiao. Seeing that there were only 10 or so meters between Wang Xiao and Zhao Fu, Wang Xiao felt that Qin's legatee was only SOSO, and just as he was about to attack Zhao Fu expressionlessly stretched out a hand towards Wang Xiao and gripped the air. Xing! A massive metallic sound rang out, and in that instant, countless chains shot towards Wang Xiao from all directions. Wang Xiao was given a big fright, and he slashed out a large amount of saber light and released a blue barrier of light. Pooh! Everything fell silent as Wang Zhao's body was pierced by hundreds of chains from all directions. There was not a single part of his body that was unharmed, and blood flowed down the chains and dripped onto the ground. Before Wang Xiao died, he had a look of shock on his face, looking quite wretched. Traces of blood-red, crystal-like aura floated out of Wang Zhao's body and floated into the king's crown, causing it to receive a large portion of its healing power. After Wang Xiao died, the blue dragon in the sky dissipated, and Zhao Fu put away the chains, causing Wang Zhao's wretched body to fall to the ground. This was the first time Zhao Fu had truly used the king's crown's power, and it was incredibly powerful. Because it was a king armament, it was able to deal great damage to kings. Now, it was time to clean up the battlefield. There was no need for Zhao Fu to worry about this, and he left it to Bai Qi to handle. After that, Zhao Fu flew towards the state of Zheng City Hall. With Wang Zhao's death, the barrier had long since shattered. Zhao Fu walked into the city hall and looked at the Rubik's Cube floating in the air. He placed his hand on it, and a system announcement sounded out. Zhao Fu had chosen to conquer it. Immediately, Zheng Guozhen's city creation stone exploded out with a blue light that rushed into the sky, causing the entire sky to tremble as blue light filled the entire sky. Roar! A massive dragon roar filled with pain, unwillingness, and grief echoed throughout the entire northern continent. The sudden dragon's roar once again caused the entire northern continent to feel shocked. Which kingdom was destroyed this time? Countless forces returned to the real world. After some investigation, they found out that the state of Zheng had been destroyed, and the force that had destroyed the state of Zheng was, without a doubt, Qin. This caused the countless forces to feel even more terrified and uneasy. Since Qin had the power to cross regions, no one in the northern continent would be safe. At first, they had held on to a trace of hope that Qin was only attacking the Qin Resistance Alliance. After all, they had openly opposed Qin, so it was only right for Qin to destroy them. However, this hope was now shattered. Not only was Qin attacking the Qin Resistance Alliance, but he was also attacking all other factions. The state of Zheng was a classic example, and they were also Qin's targets. All of the factions felt a chill in their hearts, and thinking about Qin's terrifying power, they felt a trace of fear. Could it be that they were just going to wait for Qin to destroy them one by one? Of course, the countless factions were unwilling to accept this, so they decided not to just sit around and wait for death. Instead, they all took action and made an important decision. They quickly contacted Su Yan. At first, Su Yan was quite hesitant about this matter. Before, he had opposed Qin's legatee, but he had suffered a crushing defeat. Thinking about legatee Qin's terrifying fate, even Su Yan felt quite afraid, and he understood how difficult this matter was. However, if he didn't do this, it would go against his ideals. If he did, he would most likely fail, and he would definitely lose his life. After thinking for a long time, Su Yan finally agreed. If he succeeded, his name would go down in history, and he would have the same ideals as him. Perhaps he would die, but there would be no regrets if he died because of his ideals. Soon, the countless factions reached a unified goal, and with Su Yan as their strategist, they started to move. A massive undercurrent silently flowed towards Qin. As for the Wang family, who had been destroyed, they were all in pain and frustration, and they felt immense hatred towards Qin. Now that their legacy had been destroyed, they had lost their status as a legatee family. However, they still had a trace of hope, as the Wang family was not weak in the real world. If they vigorously developed their faction, they would have a chance to contend for supremacy in the future. However, because they had lost their legacy, it would be much more difficult. As for who had leaked the location of their base, the Wang family had done a large-scale search and killed a few suspected members of the main family. It was a pity that they were unable to find the person who had leaked the location of their base. Wang Xiaozhu had seen all of this, and he couldn't do anything abnormal. Even though he was bullied and cursed by others, he didn't feel much resentment. Instead, he felt incredibly happy, as the state of Zheng had been destroyed by his hands. At the same time, Wang Xiaozhu prepared to develop his own faction. A silver Great City Creation Stone and 30,000 gold coins were enough for a faction to develop in a short period of time. Su Yan also went to find Great Shun and the state of Zheng, which had been destroyed by Qin. Because the state of Wei had submitted and stood on Qin's side, he couldn't obtain anything from them. The reason Su Yan went to find these two factions was to find out more about Qin's military strength. The two families were incredibly delighted to see Su Yan, as they now hated Qin to the bone. It was just that they didn't have the ability to resist. After finding out what the countless factions were thinking, as well as Su Yan's goal, the Li family and Wang family happily joined in, and they told Su Yan the details of their battle with Qin. After hearing about this, Su Yan felt quite shocked. He had never thought that Qin's military strength would be so powerful. At the same time, he found out that Qin could condense massive beasts and use ghost-type illusions. Following this, Su Yan organized the information he had gathered and sent it to the countless factions so that they could think of a way to stop Qin. After hearing about this, the countless factions felt quite delighted. They hadn't misjudged Su Yan's abilities. They started to make preparations so that they would be able to resist Qin in the future. After doing these things, Su Yan looked over the situation in China and personally wrote 10 or so letters, sending them to the legatees of the various dynasties. Chapter 402. Su Yan had long since expected that none of the dynasties would say anything, as this matter wouldn't be so easily resolved. He just wanted to give a try, and if a dynasty legacy joined, they would have a much greater chance of success. It was a pity that none of them were willing to do anything. Su Yan could consider the remaining factions, but he didn't consider the 100 schools of thought. After all, none of the 100 schools of thought would be enemies with a kingdom, and they were all scattered across the various factions, so there was no need to consider them. That was all he could do for now. If he did something big in the future, he could have a dynasty legacy join him, or he could borrow some foreign factions to keep Qin in check. They would most likely understand how dangerous Qin was, so they would most likely join. Su Yin started to think and come up with various plans. Now that he had the support of countless factions, the power he could use was massive, and Su Yin felt much more confident. Back at the state of Zheng, after conquering it, Zhao Fu received countless system announcements. System announcement. The state of Zheng has been destroyed, and its fate has been devoured by Qin. Qin has obtained a large amount of fate. System announcement. Qin has destroyed the state of Zheng and obtained all of Great Shun's legacies. System announcement. Qin's city heart has evolved and is currently 2/30ths complete. System announcement. Qin has obtained 1/5 of the state of Zheng's stats. System announcement. Nation armament 12 metal colossi has obtained a large amount of fate and has evolved. System announcement. Clan armament imperial seal has obtained a large amount of fate and has evolved. System announcement. You have conquered a legacy town and obtained 3,000 achievement points. System announcement. You have obtained 100 war points. Zhao Fu was already familiar with these system announcements, so he didn't need to read through them. He glanced at them and didn't find anything special, so he didn't pay too much attention to them. However, Zhao Fu gave all of the achievement points to Sar. Now that he was the city lord of Orc City, his status was going to rise. The 3,000 achievement point from the King's Ring were enough to raise Sar's status to 3rd-ranked Viscount, and he fulfilled the requirement to level up a great city. The main thing was that conquering a legacy town would bring massive benefits. By now, Bai Qi had finished clearing up the battlefield and came up to report, "Your Majesty, we've achieved a complete victory. In this battle, we obtained a complete victory with only a few casualties. At the same time, we obtained a large amount of resources, equipment, money, and roughly 8,000 captives." Hearing this, Zhao Fu simply nodded. In actuality, Zhao Fu did not care much about these spoils of war. Following this, he relocated the Gua of Zheng Town and obtained 160,000 or so EXP. Following this, Zhao Fu ordered people to find 4 corpses from the pile of high-grade corpses. These 4 corpses were, of course, the state of Zheng's generals. One of them was SS grade, while the other 3 were S grade. After returning to Qin City with the soldiers, Zhao Fu refined the 4 corpses and fused the SS grade corpse with the innate talent blood crystal that he had refined before, obtaining a brand new innate talent blood crystal. Zhao Fu called Sima Qo over and gave him this innate talent blood crystal. Seeing Sima Qo's body continuously give off a blood-red light, a trace of a smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face. Qin City now had another SSS grade general with a general star. Right now, Qin City only had one historical general, Zhang Han, who was SS grade. However, Zhao Fu had obtained 3 S grade historical general corpses, and he was only missing an SS grade historical general corpse to raise Zhang Han to a general star. Following this, Zhao Fu rebuilt the state of Zheng Town. Now that he had destroyed 3 legatees, he had obtained a massive amount of fate. Qin City decided to properly digest this fate, slow down its development, and consolidate its foundation. Recently, there had been many battles, and they had obtained a great victory in attacking the state of Zheng. As such, Zhao Fu gave his soldiers a break and allowed them to rest. Zhao Fu also turned his attention to internal affairs. Because it was late autumn, production was the busiest. All sorts of fruits and crops had matured and needed to be quickly harvested, so Zhao Fu added many people to help. At the same time, Zhao Fu started to prepare crops for the next season. Spring, summer, and autumn were not too bad, as there were many crops that could produce food and fruits, so they did not have to worry too much about the seasons. However, winter was a season of silence, and many crops would not be able to produce food and fruits. For example, rice and some fruit trees could not be planted in winter, and even with the city's growth time acceleration and production bonuses, they would not be able to grow them. It was now late autumn, and after autumn, it would be winter. It was time to prepare some crops that could be planted in winter. There were 10 times more crops in the Heaven Awakened world than in the real world, so there were many things to consider. The first was food. They could not lack food at all times, while fruits and vegetables were secondary. As for food, Zhao Fu chose a type of crop called frost wheat. Frost wheat was a type of wheat, and it was quite resistant to the cold, so it could be planted in winter. As for fruits and vegetables, because there were many types of crops, Zhao Fu chose 20 or so that tasted good and were easy to grow. Moreover, during winter, the weather was quite cold, so they had to prepare many things to resist the cold. After all of Qin City's soldiers and civilians needed them, so they could not lack cotton. Because cotton was the same grade as food, they would be able to grow them in large quantities. Their growth time would be increased, and their production would be doubled. This was much better than in the real world, as they did not have to wait for such a long time. Now, Qin City's stats were incredibly powerful, so Qin City's winter would be quite comfortable. If other factions relied on ordinary villages, they would not be able to satisfy their needs, so they would have to purchase some crops. In terms of production, after making preparations for winter, Zhao Fu turned his attention to building roads. Zhao Fu planned to build 4 main roads. Teleportation channels were quite useful, and Qin City mainly relied on teleportation channels to travel between villages. As such, roads were quite useless, but as a territory, how could it not have roads? Right now, teleportation channels were quite useful, but what if they could not be used anymore? As such, Zhao Fu planned to build 4 main roads that would stretch out from the north, south, east, and west of Qin City. Qin City would definitely be the capital in the future, so it needed good transportation. Zhao Fu planned to use these 4 roads to connect different cities, and the 4 roads would continuously branch off to form a transportation network. Zhao Fu planned to use stone bricks to pave the 4 roads, and Qin City's villages were spread out 2,000 kilometers away. As such, this would be a large project, and it would take a lot of time and effort. Zhao Fu was not in a rush, and he planned to build them slowly. After all, he did not lack time. Chapter 403. The good news was about Later Zhou. Later Zhou was one of the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms, and it was one of the 4 members of the Qin Resistance Alliance. Because Great Qin had just destroyed the state of Zheng, Later Zhou was incredibly terrified. They did not know how the other 2 countries had leaked their positions, and Later Zhou was worried that their positions would be leaked as well. In order to prevent Great Qin from attacking, they would be like the other 2 countries and would not be able to resist at all. As such, they sent all of their people back to their villages. This meant that the established player faction would be transferred back to the village encampment to defend Zhou country together. However, with the character of the players, they would never do such a thing. However, with the players' personalities, Later Zhou's location was naturally leaked. Later Zhou was the last of the 5 dynasties. Guo Wei destroyed the Later Han and established the Later Zhou. And after Chai Rong inherited the throne, he fought all over the country and prepared the conditions for unification. In actuality, Later Zhou was the most likely to establish a unified dynasty after the Tang dynasty. However, Chai Rong died too early, and Emperor Gong of Later Zhou, Chai Zongxuan, was only 7 years old. Later Zhou and Ding Zhou lied that Northern Han and Liao's armies had allied together to attack Later Zhou. Later Zhou hurriedly sent Zhao Kuangyin to defend, but Zhao Kuangyin led his troops to Chenqiye and started the Chenqiye Rebellion, establishing the Northern Song dynasty. The Song dynasty completely replaced Later Zhou, and Later Zhou's victory and conditions for unification were all taken by Zhao Kuangyin. History was like this. Many emperors killed many loyal subjects because of their suspicions, but there were also many emperors who were usurped by their generals because they believed in Zhao Kuangyin. Later Zhou was a country that had been divided at the end of the Tang dynasty, so its fate should not be weak. This was especially so because Later Zhou had prepared the conditions for unification. Even though it had been stolen by Zhao Kuangyin, Later Zhou had a lot of fate, and it would be a very juicy piece of meat. Now that later Zhou's location had been leaked, Qin would definitely attack. However, later Zhou and the Song dynasty were mortal enemies, and it seemed that Qin had once again helped someone else. Of the three states that Great Qin had destroyed, Great Shun had helped the Ming dynasty destroy Great Shun, and the state of Zheng had helped the Tang dynasty destroy Great Qin. The state of Wei didn't have much enmity with Great Qin, and it was only because it had been crippled by Great Qin's second emperor that they had enmity with each other. As such, the state of Wei had easily submitted. However, they still had to fight Zhou. Although they were suspected of helping others, the biggest beneficiary was the Qin state. If such an important thing as the location of the Zhou kingdom was leaked, then other information would naturally leak out easily. Of course, in order to know this, the Qin kingdom must pay a small price. However, other than Qin, it was useless for most people to want the land of inheritance. After all, did they dare to fight? Even if they fought, they wouldn't be able to defeat them. Every nation's legacy was, without a doubt, the strongest faction in the region. It would be incredibly difficult for ordinary people to touch them. Later Zhou's population had reached more than 60,000, including the 50,000 players in the system encampment. Later Zhou's total military strength was more than 110,000. If he didn't think of a way to break through, it would be very difficult. Even if Qin attacked head-on, he wouldn't be able to gain much. However, this matter was quite easy to solve. They just needed to find the main cause, which was to cooperate with the later Zhou players. Zhao Fu immediately ordered people to deal with this matter. In fact, if Zhou State didn't do this, Qin still wanted to develop steadily. But he leaked his location, so Qin certainly couldn't let him go. A bit of benefit could make people do things willingly, and a lot of benefits could make people do many things. Massive benefits could make people do anything. Soon, with the massive benefits that Qin offered, he contacted a person. Within a hidden room, Zhao Fu sat on a chair as a man with a knife-shaped face respectfully stood in front of him. This was the person that Qin had contacted, and his name was Wu Yang. He held a lot of power in later Zhou, and because he had once saved the Chai family's main branch, he was highly regarded. Even in the real world, the Chai family held a lot of power. The Chai family would never have thought that he would betray them. Now, Wu Yang held a lot of power and was admired by many people, so he couldn't help but become respectful. He had never thought that Qin's legatee would personally meet him. Zhao Fu was the ruler of Great Qin, the person who was most likely to become a king in the future. His development was unstoppable, and he was a ferocious person. When he thought of that, Wu Yang naturally felt more and more respectful toward Zhao Fu. "Speak. What do you want? I'll satisfy you." Zhao Fu looked at Wu Yang. From the information that he had, Wu Yang seemed to have some ability, or else he wouldn't have been so highly regarded by the Chai family. Wu Yang bowed and replied, "First, I want Qin to guarantee the safety of my wife and daughter, whether it's now or after the heaven-awakened world devours the real world." Zhao Fu felt quite surprised. What Wu Yang wanted was not power or money, but the safety of his wife and daughter. This was quite simple, so Zhao Fu nodded and said, "I can promise you that I'll send people to do this in secret." Hearing Zhao Fu agree, Wu Yang let out a sigh of relief. What he was most worried about was his wife and daughter, as he had long since seen through the current situation. By now, the various factions were fighting each other, and there were countless deaths and injuries. However, the situation was still quite good. At least people wouldn't die true deaths, and everything could be controlled. However, once the real world was devoured, the Warring States period would begin. When that time came, the rules of etiquette would collapse, and the flames of war would spread everywhere. There would be no order, and it would be endless bloodshed. Even though the Chai family had a successor, they weren't unified, and they were split into 3 factions. Normally, they would fight for power, and if it wasn't for Qin's legatee's threat, the Chai family wouldn't have been able to form a unified front. Wu Yang didn't have much faith in the Chai family. Even if he worked for the Chai family in the future, Wu Yang didn't have the confidence that later Zhou wouldn't be destroyed. Once later Zhou was destroyed, not just him, but even his wife and daughter would be killed. As such, he had to find a powerful backer who could create a peaceful world. When Qin's people contacted Wu Yang, he knew that later Zhou's location had been leaked and that it was beyond saving. Even if he didn't do it himself, someone else would. In the end, Wu Yang decided to rely on Qin. Following this, Wu Yang said, "Also, if Qin can give me a small village chief position, I'll be satisfied." Now that his biggest goal had been resolved, Wu Yang had to think about the future. He had decided to rely on Qin, and he understood that Qin wouldn't put him in an important position. However, if he could become a village chief, it wouldn't be too bad either. After all, his wife and daughter wouldn't have to worry about food and clothing, and they would be able to live a peaceful life. Zhao Fu lightly laughed. He didn't expect Wu Yang to have such low requirements. It was truly unexpected. Hearing Zhao Fu's laughter, Wu Yang felt quite confused. Could it be that Zhao Fu wouldn't even give him a village chief position? All right, if he can live a peaceful life, it'll be quite good. Chapter 404. No, you've misunderstood. If we succeed, I'll support you to become the ruler of this region, Zhao Fu said as he smiled. Wu Yang didn't expect this at all, and he didn't know how to react. Zhao Fu wanted to support him to become the ruler of this region, which meant that he would be the most powerful player faction. Thank you, Your Majesty. Wu Yang quickly came back to his senses and bowed to Zhao Fu in delight. In actuality, Zhao Fu had his reasons for doing this. Firstly, Wu Yang had a decent player faction, and if Qin could control it and support it, it would be easy for it to become the largest faction in the region. This would be the foundation for Qin City's future development. Of course, the core of this faction would still be controlled by Qin City. Zhao Fu wouldn't trust Wu Yang just because he valued family. After all, Wu Yang would betray him for the same reason. Moreover, if Wu Yang's wife and daughter fell into Zhao Fu's hands, he would be able to use them against Zhao Fu. Let's end this matter here. Go back and make some preparations, and I'll have people bring your wife and daughter safely back to the Ying family. Now that they had come to an agreement, Zhao Fu wanted to quickly carry out his plan. At that moment, Wu Yang suddenly thought of something and said, "Your Majesty, there's something that I want to tell you. I don't know if you'd like to hear about something." Zhao Fu gestured for Wu Yang to continue. Following this, Wu Yang took out 2 talisman papers and handed them to Zhao Fu as he said, "Your Majesty, the Chai family has been secretly buying many of these 2 types of talisman papers. They've also paid a high price for some formation." Zhao Fu took the 2 talisman papers and looked at them. One was an evil warding talisman, which could drive away ghosts, and the other was a soul-protecting talisman, which could protect one's mind. When he saw these 2 talisman papers and heard Wu Yang's words, Zhao Fu felt that something was off, as if there was an undercurrent brewing. However, Zhao Fu did not reveal anything on his face, and he indicated that he already knew about this matter before leaving the room. After leaving the room, Zhao Fu returned to Qin City and called Guo Binglin over, telling him to immediately investigate this matter. Guo Binglin obeyed and quickly left. Zhao Fu felt that something was wrong because the evil warding talisman and the spirit protecting talisman worked together to restrain the dark ghost world. However, because Qin's nether ghost realm was cast by a soldier at or above the 1st stage, these ordinary talismans were useless. They could not be immune to the nether ghost realm at all. Zhao Fu wondered why the state of Zhou prepared these 2 kinds of Fu papers. Zhao Fu thought for a while and concluded that the state of Zhou must have known about Qin's means, so they bought these to resist Qin. Those who know Qin's means are only those who were destroyed by Qin. Now that Zhou's state has taken protective measures, are they united? After a while, Guo Binglin returned and reported with a solemn expression, "Your Highness, I've already investigated and found out that many organizations are secretly purchasing items that can counter illusion techniques and giant beasts." After hearing this, Zhao Fu's expression became serious. Because his abilities in the Heaven Awakened world were limited, Zhao Fu did not have enough information, so he quickly returned to the real world. Just as he returned to the real world, he did not expect that there was already a man in a suit waiting for him. "Greetings, proxy family leader. I'm Mu Gillen, and I'm in charge of the Ying family's intelligence work." The man politely smiled at Zhao Fu as he introduced himself. Zhao Fu nodded and asked, "What is it?" Mu Gillen handed over a document and said, "Proxy family leader, this is the information that the family leaders have asked me to give you. Nearly 80% of the factions in the northern side of the Midland continent have allied together to deal with Qin. Moreover, with the school of vertical and horizontals, he's zone branch as a strategist. I'd like the family leaders to remind Prince Qin of this so that he doesn't get into trouble." When he heard this, Zhao Fu's expression became quite serious. He had planned to use the Ying family's power to ask around, but he had never thought that the Ying family would have already investigated this matter. Zhao Fu sat on the sofa and flipped through the documents that Mu Gillen had given him before coldly harumphing, "A bunch of reckless fools. I already know about this. Also, order the Ying family to secretly go to this location and bring those two people back." Zhao Fu picked up a pen and wrote down an address and two people's names on a piece of paper before handing it to Mu Gillen. Mu Gillen looked at the paper and nodded before leaving the villa. Wu Yang's wife and daughter were now in the Chai family's residence, so he had to secretly bring them to the Ying family. Moreover, even if they allied together, they would not be able to stop Zhao Fu from attacking later Zhou. Zhao Fu prepared to return to the heaven-awakened world when his phone rang. When Zhao Fu saw that it was Wu Qingyang, he thought about it and answered, "Qingyang, what is it?" Wu Qingyang's serious voice sounded out, "Of course it's something big. I'm sure you've heard that the entire northern side of the Midland continent has allied together to deal with Qin's legatee. Do you know what legatee Qin is planning?" Now that Zhao Fu had become legatee Qin's representative, Wu Qingyang became even more concerned about legatee Qin's matters. Not only would this help Zhao Fu, but it would also help herself. If the Wu family could obtain legatee Qin's help, it would be a great opportunity. Wu Qingyang felt that she could not surpass legatee Qin. If she could obtain legatee Qin's help, she would be able to help Zhao Fu and herself rebuild Great Zhou. Wu Qingyang was already very satisfied. Because of Zhao Fu, the Wu family naturally became closer to Qin's legatee. After such a big thing had happened, Wu Qingyang had no choice but to become serious. In order to wait for Zhao Fu, she had not entered the heaven-awakened world this entire time. "Oh, I'm not too sure, but I'll definitely resolve it." Zhao Fu could only reply like this, because he had not thought of a way to resolve this matter yet. Hearing this, Wu Qingyang nodded before saying seriously, "Also, Zhao Fu, the Wu family will stand behind you and will most likely be of some help to you in front of legatee Qin. Legatee Qin's murderous nature is too strong, and he's a very dangerous person. I'm worried that he might kill you in a moment of anger, so you should be careful in the future when working for him." Hearing Wu Qingyang's words, Zhao Fu couldn't help but laugh. How could he possibly kill himself? However, he felt quite warm towards Wu Qingyang's concern, and he replied, I understand. I still have things to do in the heaven-awakened world." Hearing Zhao Fu smile, Wu Qingyang felt quite angry. However, hearing that Zhao Fu understood, she nodded and hung up. Soon, they returned to the heaven-awakened world. Zhao Fu told the various generals about the alliance against Qin's legatee, and after discussing it with them, they all looked quite serious. No one would be able to face so many factions without a headache. At the same time, Zhao Fu started to gather his soldiers. Chapter 405. Time gradually passed, and Zhao Fu received news that Wu Yang's wife and daughter had been brought back to the Ying family. After making sure that his wife and daughter were safe, Wu Yang let out a sigh of relief. By now, Wu Yang and the others had finished their plan and were just waiting for an opportunity to carry it out. However, he could only stay in the Chai family's residence for now. If others found out that he and his wife had disappeared, their plan would definitely be exposed, and their lives would be in danger. Even though Wu Yang had helped the Chai family many times in the past, he knew the consequences of betraying the Chai family. The Chai family definitely wouldn't leave him with a complete corpse. After hearing about Wu Yang's plan, Zhao Fu started to advance. At the same time, He brought over most of the Eternal Night members to set up isolation barriers and to see if there were any ambushes around Later Zhou. Now, Zhao Fu couldn't completely trust anyone. Even though Wu Yang's wife and daughter were in his hands, he couldn't completely control Wu Yang. For example, if Wu Yang's wife and daughter were fake, or if he was willing to sacrifice his wife and daughter in order to obtain greater benefits. It was common for fathers and sons to kill each other, mothers and daughters to kill each other, and brothers to turn on each other. As such, Zhao Fu had to be fully prepared. After all, he only had one life, and if he missed it, it would be gone forever. Zhao Fu had become quite suspicious, but he wanted to ensure that his subjects wouldn't die because of his mistakes. A few hours later, Zhao Fu and his 120,000 soldiers arrived at Later Zhou's location. Later Zhou was next to a very large lake, and the walls were made of a type of pure white stone, which formed a beautiful and harmonious scene with the lake. By now, Qin's assassin had finished setting up isolation barriers, but they hadn't activated them yet. At the same time, Qin's assassin had finished checking around Later Zhou to make sure that there weren't any ambushes. Zhao Fu let out a sigh of relief and waited. According to Wu Yang's plan, they would wait until nighttime, as it would be easier to move at night. Later Zhou had expected that their location had already been exposed, and that Qin's assassin had already arrived, and that their people had betrayed them. In the blink of an eye, it was 8 p.m., and the night sky was filled with stars that continuously twinkled, creating a beautiful scene. Wu Yang and the 10 or so people looked at each other and returned to the real world. They stealthily got into the car that the Ying family had prepared and returned to the heaven-awakened world. These people were completely loyal to Wu Yang, so their safety was also within Wu Yang's consideration. He had also asked Zhao Fu to protect them. Now that they had nothing to worry about, the dozen or so people smiled and began to carry out the plan. Wu Yang secretly gathered a group of players. First, he selected the players he could trust. Then, he told them about his plan and tempted them with great benefits. He told them that joining Qin's side would be 10 times better than joining Zhou Kingdom, and they would get a gold coin if they joined. 1 gold coin was equivalent to 10,000 copper coins, which was equivalent to 100,000 real money. No one had expected Qin to be so rich. Compared with the treatment he would receive in the future, it was simply too different. Before, Wu Yang could control 30,000 or so players, but under the temptation of money, he could control 40,000 or so players. However, there were still 3,000 loyal players who were not willing to join Qin. Wu Yang had long since planned for this, and since he had told them about his plan to join Qin, he couldn't let them live, or else the plan would be leaked. This was because the method of delivering this information was in a hidden forest. First, 10 or so people would call a single person to the forest and tell them about the plan. If they were willing to join, they would immediately receive money and join. Then, they would call the next person, and if they were unwilling, they would be killed on the spot. Then, they would call the next person, and soon, the 3,000 people had been dealt with. There were also some people who were in the real world and had not returned to the heaven-awakened world yet, so they were not considered. After doing all of this, Wu Yang had gathered all of the players into a single force. This was a massive benefit, and it gathered all of the players together. Because Zhao Fu had promised to give Wu Yang the position of Region Lord, Wu Yang was able to do things more comprehensively and put in more effort. Wu Yang thought about Qin's legatee, and if he could take over Later Zhou's town without much effort, he would be valued even more by Qin's legatee. Now that the players were no longer a threat, Wu Yang started to make his move against the Zhou family's factions. It was now 11 a.m., and most of the residents were asleep. Later Zhou's town fell into silence, and it was completely dark. The torches on the town walls lit up the town walls, making them seem incredibly bright. Wu Yang first had some players carefully go to each house and release sleeping gas. The sleeping gas was quite effective against residents with weaker cultivations, but it was much weaker against soldiers. Following this, Wu Yang brought 10 or so people with 10 or so jugs of wine to the town walls. Because Wu Yang was a core member, he was quite familiar with Later Zhou's people. Later Zhou's people trusted Wu Yang, so they weren't surprised that Wu Yang had come. The weather has been getting colder so quickly. Brothers, it must be tiring to guard the town walls. Have some wine to warm up your bodies, or else you'll get sick in such a cold weather. It was late autumn, and the weather was getting colder and colder. This was especially so at night, and Wu Yang used this as an excuse to bring out the poison wine. The soldiers on the town walls felt a wave of warmth towards Wu Yang's concern, and one of them said gratefully, "Sir Wu, you care about us too much. You really care for us too much, much more than the other adults." Wu Yang smiled and said, "It's nothing. You're all soldiers of Later Zhou, and it's up to you to protect Later Zhou. I warmed up the wine, so hurry up and don't let it get cold." Hearing Wu Yang's words, a small portion of the soldiers came down and drank a mouthful of wine. They gave sincere smiles and thanked Wu Yang before returning to the town walls. Wu Yang couldn't help but feel a bit guilty towards the soldiers' gratitude. However, there was no turning back now. Hiding his guilt, Wu Yang smiled and said to the soldiers who hadn't come to drink yet, "Brothers, don't worry, just drink a mouthful. It'll be fine and warm up your bodies. I spent 30 or so silver coins to buy this wine, so it'll be a pity if you don't try it." Under Wu Yang's persuasion, the soldiers on the town walls couldn't help but come down. This was mainly because Wu Yang was a good person and was quite familiar with the soldiers. This made the soldiers trust him greatly. Some of the soldiers thought that they would be fine if they just drank a mouthful of wine, but they had never tried a wine that cost 30 or so silver coins. Some of the soldiers wanted to give Wu Yang some face, while others just wanted to join in on the fun. Seeing them drink the wine one after another, Wu Yang finally felt relieved. He sighed. The Zhou nation has already fallen. Chapter 406. In the real world, it was now 9 p.m. Within an elegant-looking room, a luxurious-looking woman placed a few books on a desk and gave a benevolent smile as she said to a 12-year-old boy, "Shall we? These are all books on how to govern a country. There are also some books on the art of war. Read them carefully and study them. They'll be very helpful to you in the future. As an emperor, not only do you have to handle internal affairs well, but you also have to perform well in the art of war. Only then will you be able to achieve great things in the future." The 12-year-old boy was called Chai Xiaohui, and he was the legatee of Later Zhou. Compared to other boys, he was quite mature and had a resolute personality. "I understand, mother." After saying this, Kai Xiaohui lowered his head and began to seriously read his book. Ever since he had obtained the legacy, he knew what his responsibilities were. He also had a powerful enemy like the Song dynasty. He could only continue to work hard in order to revitalize Zhou in the future. However, no matter how hard Chai Xiaohui worked, there were still many people who weren't willing to accept him. One reason was because he was too young. Who would want to follow such a young person? Right now, Chai Xiaohui still didn't have the ability to convince people. The second reason was that their bloodline was quite weak. Even though their bloodline was the main bloodline, Chai Xiaohui's father had passed away a long time ago, and the others weren't very useful. As such, Chai Xiaohui's bloodline was naturally much more powerful. The other bloodlines were far more powerful than Chai Xiaohui's bloodline, and as the ruler of Later Zhou, they were naturally quite displeased that Chai Xiaohui had obtained the legacy. As such, there was a struggle for power. This created a lot of chaos, causing Later Zhou's people to be disunited. Many people could not see much hope, and Wu Yang was one of them. If it wasn't for the fact that Chai Xiaohui's bloodline had the support of Chai Xiaohui's mother, Chai Xiaohui might have been killed. Even if the legatee was killed, as long as the foundation wasn't destroyed, they could still choose a second legatee. Even though their fate would be greatly reduced, it was still a way to obtain the position of legatee. Chai Xiaohui's mother was the beautiful middle-aged woman. She was around 36 or 37 years old, and she was quite beautiful. When she was young, she had been a famous beauty, and after all these years, her beauty hadn't decreased. Instead, she had become more mature. The beautiful woman's name was Nangong Shuiwei, and she was the eldest daughter of a large family. Even though this family was not as powerful as a national legacy family, it was not weak. Nangong Shuiwe had relied on her family's support to endure so much pressure. Otherwise, it wouldn't just be Chai Xiaohui who would suffer. Even her bloodline would suffer. Chai Xiaohui knew that his mother's situation wasn't easy. At that moment, Kai Xiaohui was diligently studying while Nangong Shuiwe looked like a loving mother beside him. They still did not know what had happened in the Heaven Awakened world. Within the Heaven Awakened world, it was already midnight. Great Qin soldiers, who were lying in ambush near Later Zhou, had not moved because they were waiting for news from Wu Yang. Then, Wu Yang sent someone to deliver the news that everything had been settled. Now, Great Qin soldiers could finally move. However, they did not have to make too big of a move. According to the information that Wu Yang had given them, Great Qin could now silently attack the city. There were 10 or so villages on the outskirts of Later Zhou's town. Luckily, Zhao Fu had brought many Qin assassins, and Zhao Fu ordered them to infiltrate those villages and kill those who couldn't be captured. As long as they didn't alert Later Zhou's town, everything would be fine. Great Qin's assassins quickly snuck into these villages like ghosts. These villages did not have many people, only a few hundred, so it was quite easy to control them. After controlling those villages, Zhao Fu led the 100 ghost illusionists into Later Zhou's town. Because there weren't many hundred ghost illusionists, they wouldn't attract too much attention. If the 12 great armies moved, they would cause a great commotion. Wu Yang led the 100 ghost illusionists to the barracks. Later Zhou's town had 10,000 or so soldiers, and there were 2,000 or 3,000 soldiers on the town walls, 2,000 patrolling, and 5,000 or so soldiers in the barracks. Because of Wu Yang, Zhao Fu had complete information on Later Zhou's town, so he ordered the 100 ghost illusionists to use the dark ghost world to trap the soldiers. Even though Later Zhou's town had made ample preparations, the talismans were completely useless. The dark ghost world was an extremely powerful combination skill, and it was cast by Stage 1 soldiers. It was incredibly easy to deal with soldiers who hadn't even reached Stage 1 yet. Now, Wu Yang controlled the western side of the town walls, but he didn't know anything about the other 3 sides. The eastern side was personally guarded by a historical general, so Wu Yang didn't dare to act rashly. Zhao Fu split the 10,000 soldiers into 3 groups and sent them into Later Zhou's town. With the help of other players, they gradually took control of Later Zhou's town. However, many people were still asleep, and the barracks was covered by a gray, ghostly qi. The surroundings were deathly silent. The patrolling team had either been knocked out or killed a long time ago. The only places that Qin hadn't taken control over the central region of Later Zhou's town and the other 3 sides of the town walls. Right now, Great Qin could not enter the core region because once outsiders entered, the city heart would automatically go into a protective state and release a protective barrier. After taking complete control of Later Zhou's town, Zhao Fu gave the order to advance. Qin's soldiers, who were lying in ambush, started to attack the other 3 sides of the town walls. The 3 sides of the town walls only had 2,000 or so soldiers, while Qin had 10,000 or so soldiers and 40,000 or so players. This was a completely disproportionate battle. The soldiers on the town walls hadn't expected arrows to suddenly shoot out from behind them, and they had been killed without any preparation. The historical general on the eastern side of the town walls was quite shocked that something like this had happened. However, seeing that a large number of enemies had already rushed up the town walls, the historical general knew that the situation had taken a turn for the worse, and he yelled, "Enemy attack!" The historical general's voice tore through the night sky, but no one responded. The surroundings were completely silent, and even though the sounds of battle were quite loud, no one responded. Immediately, the historical general's heart sank, but the battle quickly ended. The defending soldiers were either killed or captured, and the historical general tried to resist. However, it was a pity that he was surrounded by a few Qin generals, and he was captured in just a few moves. The other 3 sides of the town walls were also taken down by Qin without any resistance. Now, only the central region hadn't been breached. Zhao Fu led his army into Later Zhou's town from the western gate, and he didn't hesitate to head towards the central region of Later Zhou's town. At that moment, a yellow energy barrier appeared in the central region to protect itself. There were 100 guards and a historical general holding a weapon as he looked around with an unsightly expression. Chapter 407. Hearing this system announcement, Chai Xiaohui's face paled. Nangong Shuiwe sensed the change in Chai Xiaohui's expression and asked in concern, "Xiaohui, are you all right? What happened?" Chai Xiaohui's body stiffened, and his face paled as he replied, "Mother, the Zhou Empire has already been invaded, and the protective barrier has been activated." "What?" Nangong Shuiwe couldn't remain calm anymore and hurriedly asked, "What's going on? Doesn't Later Zhou have 110,000 people defending it? Why would someone attack without a sound?" Chai Xiaohui shook his head. He didn't know what was going on, but he had received a notification that the village was in danger and the energy barrier was automatically activated. "Xiaohui, let's quickly go to the Heaven Awakened world and have a look. We can't allow anything to happen to Later Zhou," Nangong Shuiwe said seriously. Chai Xiaohui nodded, took the Heaven Awakened stone, and entered the Heaven Awakened world. Nangong Shuiwe also felt that something was off, and she asked, "Why would someone dare to attack Later Zhou with its current strength? Who was it that attacked them?" At that moment, Nangong Shuiwe could only pray in her heart that it was some small thief who had accidentally activated the barrier. If something happened to Xiaohui's branch would become the sinners of the Chai family, and the entire Chai family would attack them. Xiaohui's bloodline was originally weak. If such a big thing happened, perhaps Xiaohui's bloodline would not be spared. The Chai family would not have any feelings for this, and he probably did not have much ability to hold his son. "Please don't let anything happen." Nangong Shuiwe could only hope that this was the case, but she felt quite uneasy and nervously followed Zhao Fu into the Heaven Awakened world. What entered Nangong Shuiwe's vision was filled with people. All of them were well-equipped and gave off powerful auras, making them look like ferocious beasts. Just as Nangong Shuiwe entered the Heaven Awakened world and saw this scene, her pupils constricted. Seeing so many terrifying enemies, Chai Xiaohui felt quite nervous and afraid. Under the pressure of so many people, Chai Xiaohui's body slightly trembled. However, thinking about how he was Later Zhou's legatee and the future ruler of Great Zhou, he mustered up some courage and looked around, and his heart sank. Now, the entire state of Zheng Town had been conquered. Apart from the central region, the surrounding 100 or so people no longer belonged to Later Zhou. They were all enemies. Later Zhou has already perished, and there is nothing that can be done to save the situation. But Later Zhou has perished just like that? The heavy responsibility on my shoulders, the lofty ideals in my heart, and the countless efforts I've put in are all gone now. Chai Xiaohui was a child, after all, and his eyes became wet as he shouted angrily, "Who are you? Why did you attack my Zhou?" Hearing his tender voice, the crowd slowly dispersed, and a person wearing a black cloak and giving off a terrifying aura walked out. Zhao Fu's gaze fell on Chai Xiaohui and felt quite surprised. He had never thought that Later Zhou's legatee would be a 12-year-old boy. A trace of a cold smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face as he asked, "Who are we? You still haven't thought of it? I won't spare anyone who dares to oppose Qin." Hearing Zhao Fu's words, which were filled with killing intent, Chai Xiaohui was shocked. It really is Qin. That terrifying Qin is here. Qin. Chai Xiaohui's heart was filled with bitterness. The courage that he had just summoned up was instantly shattered. Zhou State was destroyed by Qin so easily. Zhou State was still too weak to fight back. A hand lightly patted his shoulder, and Chai Xiaohui looked at his mother and couldn't help but cry. Nangong Shuiwe stroked her son's back and comforted him, saying, "You're Later Zhou's legatee and the future ruler of a nation. You can't be so childish." Chai Xiaohui quickly wiped away his tears and nodded, saying, "Mother, I got it." After comforting her son, Nangong Shuiwe turned to look at Wu Yang, who was standing beside Zhao Fu, and her expression became cold. "Wu Yang, Great Qin was able to take down later Zhou's town so easily thanks to you. Facing Nangong Shiyue's gaze, Wu Yang guiltily lowered his head and said, I'm sorry, madam. Even without me, Qin would have been able to easily take down later Zhou's state. Qin's rise is unstoppable, and the Chai family is fated to be destroyed by Qin. Also, I believe that Emperor Qin is the most likely person to bring peace and prosperity, so I decided to submit to Qin. Hearing Wu Yang's explanation, Nangong Shiyue couldn't help but coldly harumph. Some decisions had not been made by her, but by the Chai family. At first, she had been very opposed to joining the Qin Resistance Alliance because the Song dynasty was already their enemy. Later Zhou state couldn't face two dynasties at once. However, back then, Qin had only just become famous, and that old thing from the Chai family had been tempted by the vertical faction. He had thought that the school of vertical and horizontal would help the Chai family, so he had joined the Qin Resistance Alliance. However, reality proved that he had been wrong. Now that Qin's reputation was unparalleled, and even 100 schools of thought had to lower their heads, the school of vertical and horizontal hadn't helped later Zhou. Now, even though Wu Yang's words were reasonable, Nangong Shiyue definitely wouldn't forgive his betrayal. Wu Yang, I've treated you quite well, Nangong Shiyue said coldly. She knew that Wu Yang controlled some players, and if they rebelled now, perhaps later Zhou would still have a trace of hope. Wu Yang understood Nangong Shiyue's words, but he could only sigh. Chapter 408. Countless people retreated, opening up an empty space. Nangong Shiyue also let go of her son. Later Zhou's legatee had to act like one. Chai Xiaowei resolutely looked at Zhao Fu and took out a short sword from his spatial ring. With his height, it was perfect for him to hold a short sword. After taking out the short sword, Chai Xiaowei gripped it with both hands and took a defensive stance. Zhao Fu's blood-red eyes looked at Chai Xiaowei as he gripped his sword and gave off a powerful aura as he walked towards Chai Xiaowei. The surroundings were completely silent, and the atmosphere was quite oppressive as everyone stared at the two people on the ground. Everyone knew that it was impossible for Chai Xiaowei to defeat Qin's legatee. However, how had later Zhou's legatee, a 12-year-old boy, died? Suddenly, as he walked towards Chai Xiaowei, Zhao Fu's body blurred as he instantly crossed 20 or so meters and arrived in front of Chai Xiaowei. He raised his sword and casually slashed out. Boom! A terrifying black sword light containing shocking destructive power flew out, seeming to be able to easily split apart a small mountain. Roar! Chai Xiaohui was greatly startled and immediately used his Fate Dragon's power. A dragon's roar sounded out from within his body, and his body gave off a yellow light as a powerful aura exploded out. Chai Xiaohui used his full strength as he swung his sword, bringing with him a shocking sword wind as he slashed towards Zhao Fu. Bang! A massive explosion sounded out as the two swords clashed, causing a shockwave to blast out like a wild gale. A 10-meter-wide crater appeared in the ground. In the next second, Chai Xiaohui's small body flew backwards and crashed into a wall, causing it to collapse and kicking up a cloud of dust. Right now, Chai Xiaohui was still too weak. His cultivation had not even reached stage 1, and because he was still young, he did not have enough battle experience or control his power. As such, even though he had released his Fate Dragon's power, he was still unable to block a single attack from Zhao Fu. After all, Zhao Fu had used his City Lord Seal's power. Zhao Fu would not show any mercy, not to mention a child. Even if anyone stood in front of him, Zhao Fu would kill them, including his former friends and relatives. If he chose to be an enemy of Qin and stood in Qin's way, Zhao Fu would not show mercy, because they were the ones who made the choice first. They were the ones who gave up on their friendship, so Zhao Fu would also give it up. I'd rather betray the world than let the world betray me. In the past, he had only paid attention to the majesty and power of this sentence. Now he understood the endless killing intent within it. Within the boundless darkness, the blood-red star slowly spun, continuously giving off a devilish blood-red light. Under his cloak, Zhao Fu's eyes also gave off a blood-red light. Within the collapsed wall, Chai Xiaohui was covered with blood as he slowly stood up. His entire body was in immense pain, and he almost cried. However, he was the ruler of Great Zhou, so he endured it and roared as he rushed at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu coldly watched as he raised his sword. Xing, a sharp black sword arc, giving off a power that seemed to be able to cut through everything, left a long gash in the ground as it shot toward Chai Xiaohui. Chai Xiaohui was given a big fright and quickly dodged to the side. However, his injured body reacted too late, and even though he was able to avoid being cut in half, one of his arms was cut off at the wrist. Chai Xiaohui could no longer endure it and collapsed to the ground as he howled in pain. Nangong Shuye finally couldn't endure it anymore and ran over to hug Chai Xiaohui. She cried and comforted him, "Don't be afraid. Mother is here." Moreover, Nangong Shuye took out all sorts of medicines and hurriedly started to heal Chai Xiaohui's arm. "Is there a need for that?" Zhao Fu coldly looked at this mother and son. Their mother-son relationship had touched him greatly in the past, but now Zhao Fu didn't feel anything about it anymore. He raised the sky demon sword, and a terrifying black sword light continuously shot out, causing everyone to feel how terrifying this sword strike was. Nangong Shuye sensed this terrifying power, and she turned to look at Zhao Fu before looking down at her son, who was in pain in her arms, and her expression dimmed. Zhao Fu was about to slash out and kill this mother and son together. "Wait, we're willing to submit to Qin." A voice interrupted Zhao Fu. It was Nangong Shuye. "Mother, don't. Later Zhou won't submit to anyone," Chai Xiaohui said with great difficulty as he endured the pain. Nangong Shuye slightly smiled at her son, saying, "I'll take care of things. Later Zhou is doomed, and if its foundation is destroyed, I won't be able to protect you." Zhao Fu didn't put away his sword. Subduing a dynasty's legacy was far better than destroying one, but Zhao Fu didn't trust them. Because of Wei's historical loyalty, and because of Wei's character, Zhao Fu could trust them. However, he couldn't do the same for later Zhou. After all, if later Zhou rebelled before Qin established a kingdom, it would be a disaster for Qin, and Zhao Fu didn't want that to happen. "Why should I trust you?" Zhao Fu asked as he looked at Nangong Shuye. Nangong Shuye knew that Zhao Fu wouldn't trust them, but she was prepared. She deeply breathed in and looked at Zhao Fu as she said, "Emperor Qin, you should know that the Song dynasty was established on later Zhou's foundation, and it inherited later Zhou in many ways. As such, if you want to deal with great Song in the future, later Zhou will be able to help. With us, later Zhou will have some of later Zhou's fate, and with this fate, you'll be able to use Great Song's nation armament, the Emperor Cloth." This made Zhao Fu feel quite tempted, and after thinking about it, he put his sword away. If later Zhou could be of great help in destroying Great Song in the future, he wouldn't mind keeping them, but he had to keep them under strict control. "All right, I agreed to submit." Hearing Qin's words, Nangong Shuye let out a sigh of relief before saying, "Your Majesty, please give my son a ruler title." Zhao Fu had expected this, and he took out the royal wood sword and walked towards Nangong Shuye. Suddenly, seeing Zhao Fu walk over with his sword, Nangong Shuye started to feel nervous. Luckily, Zhao Fu didn't seem to have any killing intent, so she relaxed. Zhao Fu came to Nangong Shuye's side and sent his king's power into the royal wood sword. The royal wood sword shot out countless glowing green lines and connected Chai Xiaohui's severed arm. Very quickly, Chai Xiaohui's severed arm was as good as new, and the intense pain disappeared. Chai Xiaohui's pained expression gradually disappeared, and Nangong Shuye felt quite delighted. "I will now give you the title of ruler of Zhou." Zhao Fu put away the royal wood sword and looked at Chai Xiaohui as he spoke in a dignified and serious voice. Chapter 409. After Chai Xiaohui knelt and spoke, a yellow light shot out from his body and shot into the sky. Roar! A dragon's roar sounded out as a 100-meter-long yellow dragon flew out from Chai Xiaohui's body and flew into the sky, giving off a massive aura that could cause all creatures to tremble in fear. However, the yellow dragon immediately cried out as its body started to slowly degenerate. Its body became smaller, and its horns and claws disappeared until it became a 30-meter-long yellow dragon python. At the same time, traces of golden aura floated toward Zhao Fu and were absorbed by the king's crown. The king's crown had already devoured the state of Zhang's legatee's fate, and it now obtained the state of Zhang's legatee's king's fate. As such, the king's crown, which had been a white grade item, became a blue grade item, and its stats greatly changed. The dragon python in the sky swam down and returned to Chai Xiaohui's body. The yellow energy shield outside the city hall also shattered like glass with a bang and then disappeared. "Rise," Zhao Fu said as he looked at Chai Xiaohui kneeling on the ground. Hearing this, Chai Xiaohui stood up in disappointment, and Nangong Shuye comforted him, saying, "Xiaohui, don't worry. Even though later Zhou is gone, you'll still have great achievements in the future. Trust your mom." Hearing Nangong Shuye's words, Chai Xiaohui felt much better, and he nodded earnestly as he said, "I understand, mother." Zhao Fu ignored the two of them and walked towards later Zhou's city hall. Bai Qi and the generals also started to clean up the battlefield. After arriving at the city hall, Zhao Fu looked at the yellow cube floating in the air. This was the fourth legatee that Qin had taken down, and he couldn't help but feel quite happy. Zhao Fu placed his hand on the cube and chose to conquer it. The city heart continuously trembled and gave off terrifying ripples as a yellow pillar of light shot into the sky, causing clouds to swirl. Dong, dong, dong. Heavy and sorrowful drumming suddenly sounded out in the sky, and it sounded out 9 times in a row. The massive drumming was so loud that almost the entire northern side of the Midland continent could hear it. The expressions of all of the factions in the northern side of the Midland continent were quite unsightly. There was fear and panic. They had never thought that another kingdom would submit. As for who could make a kingdom submit, everyone knew that Great Qin was simply too terrifying. They had just secretly formed an alliance, but before they could do anything, Great Qin had destroyed another legatee. Recently, Great Qin had destroyed 3 legatees, and adding on Great Shun, it had destroyed 4 legatees. Great Qin, which already had a massive amount of fate, now had 4 more legatees. Great Qin's fate was incredibly terrifying, making the various factions feel even more terrified. At the same time, they started to wonder if they should continue to oppose Great Qin. Even with so many of them working together, they did not have much confidence. This was mainly because they were all in different regions, and some of the regions had not been opened yet. With Great Qin's ability to cross regions, they would be taken down by Great Qin one by one. Otherwise, with so many forces in the north, there was no need to be afraid of Qin. But now they were hesitating. On the one hand, if they fought against Qin, they would die. On the other hand, if they didn't fight against Qin, they might still die. It was really hard for them to make a choice. Later, they learned that the Zhou state had surrendered to Qin. This news made the Song dynasty start to pay attention to Qin. They also held a secret meeting to discuss it. Of the 4 kingdoms that had joined the Qin Resistance Alliance, only the Qi kingdom remained. The other 3 kingdoms, Great Shun, Wei, and Zhou, had all been destroyed. Out of all the factions, the one that feared the most was undoubtedly the Qi kingdom, and it was as if its butt was on fire. After all, it was very likely that the Qi kingdom would be destroyed by Qin next. When the other dynasties heard about the destruction of Zhou, they couldn't help but become serious. Qin's recent actions were very big. He had destroyed 3 countries in a row. His speed was really unexpected. In the real world, after the Ying family's family leaders heard about this, they naturally laughed happily. After all, it was possible that Qin's legatee would return to the Ying family, and that Qin would also return to the Ying family. At the same time, they felt incredibly happy that they had chosen Zhao Fu to be the acting family leader to curry favor with Qin's legatee. It was only because of Zhao Fu's appearance that the Ying family had established a relationship with Qin's legatee. After hearing about this, Su Yan's expression became serious, and he didn't say anything. Instead, he continued to look through the information. Back in the Heaven-Awakened world, after Zhao Fu conquered Later Zhou's town, system announcements continuously sounded out in his mind. System announcement. Later Zhou has submitted, and its fate has been devoured by Qin. Qin has obtained a large amount of fate. System announcement. Qin has subdued Later Zhou and obtained all of Later Zhou's legacy. System announcement. Qin's city heart has evolved, and it is currently 3/30. System announcement. Qin's town has obtained 1/5 of Later Zhou's town stats. System announcement. Nation armament 12 metal colossi has evolved, and it has obtained a large amount of fate. System announcement. Clan armament imperial ruler's seal has evolved, and it has obtained a large amount of fate. System announcement. You have conquered a town with a nation's legacy and obtained 3,000 achievement points. System announcement. You have obtained 100 war points. These system announcements were the same as before, and Zhao Fu didn't look at them too much. Zhao Fu allocated the achievement points to Doke because Westpan City was Qin's prey. Westpan City was a kobold city, and Doke was a kobold city, so leveling him up to Viscount satisfied the requirements for leveling up. There is also a system announcement that the Chaotic World Stone Steel had leveled up to level 4 and could be exchanged for gold-grade items. Leveling up to level 5 required 1,000 war points, which could be exchanged for legendary grade items. Qi now had quite a few war points because he hadn't used them yet. Within a hall, Zhao Fu sat at the head, and by Qi and the other generals had finished cleaning up the battlefield. They gave detailed reports to Zhao Fu, and there were 3 people beside him. One of them was Nangong Shuiwei, and the other was 2 historical generals. One was called Li Zhongjin, who was S grade, and the other was called Li Yun, who was SS grade. As for Chai Xiaohui, because he had been injured, Nangong Shuiwei told him to rest and recover. There were also 2 historical generals' corpses. Because they had resisted too intensely, they had been killed on the spot. Both of them were S grade, so they could be taken back. After hearing Bai Qi's report, Zhao Fu planned to take 20,000 of Later Zhou's residents back to Qin and take Li Yun away, leaving Li Zhongjin to defend Later Zhou's town. As for the players that Wu Yonghe led, they would become independent and create a new faction. If Later Zhou's town was in danger, they would be able to help. After taking care of these matters, Zhao Fu planned to take his soldiers back to Qin. At that moment, Nangong Shuiwei stood up and said that she had something to do. She looked at the generals, and they all left the room and closed the door. Chapter 410. As Nangong Shuiwei walked over, her clothes fell off piece by piece. In the end, there was only a long silk dress left. It was almost transparent, and Nangong Shuiwei's mature figure was faintly discernible. It was enough to make one's desire burn uncontrollably. Nangong Shuiwei didn't take off her last piece of clothing. As a mature woman, she naturally knew what men were thinking. Only by revealing herself would she be more attractive to men. At that moment, Nangong Shuiwei revealed the charm of a mature woman. She came to the top and lightly sat on Zhao Fu's lap, resting her head on Zhao Fu's shoulder as she flirtatiously looked at Zhao Fu. "Allow me to serve you." Now that Later Zhou had submitted to Qin, Nangong Shuiwei had to think about the future. If she could become Qin's woman, not only would it be beneficial to her, but it would also be beneficial to the Chai family and her own family. If she became his woman, she would definitely have a say in the future, and she would be able to communicate directly with him. She would also have a certain amount of power in the entire Qin state, because he was the prince of the Qin state. It was definitely not easy to get these things, especially if she became his woman now. She would have even more benefits in the future. Then, if she became his woman, it would undoubtedly be the best for the Chai family, because the whole Chai family would benefit greatly from this relationship with Qin. Xiaohui's bloodline would also be able to sit firmly on the throne of the family leader. No one would be able to touch them. No matter how strong the other bloodlines were, under the deterrence of Prince Qin, they would have to lower their heads. This was the terrifying power of Prince Qin. Also, it would be more beneficial to the Nangong family. Perhaps the whole family would be happy to see her become the woman of Crown Prince Qin. Because of her, the Nangong family could also have a relationship with Crown Prince Qin. The Nangong family had been supporting her silently, and now it was time for her to repay them. Most importantly, Nangong Shuiwe was thinking about her son. If she became Great Qin's legatee's woman, even if her son couldn't become the crown prince, he would at least become a prince, and he would be able to fulfill his dreams and ambitions. When later Zhou had submitted, she had already made preparations to sacrifice herself. As such, she had told Chai Xiaohui that he would definitely have great accomplishments in the future. Not only did Nangong Shuiwe believe in her son, but she also decided to help him. Now, of course, she had no feelings for Zhao Fu. However, for many reasons, she was willing to do anything for her son. Not only did she have to devote herself to him, but she also had to fall in love with the crown Prince Qin. Only when she had feelings for him could she win his feelings for her. Nangong Shuiwe knew that her body could only attract him for a short period of time. As Qin's legatee, he would have many women in the future, and there would be many who were better than her. It was too shallow to use her body. Only emotions could hold him back. With a mature woman sitting on him, smelling her enchanting body fragrance and feeling her seductive figure, Zhao Fu also had some reaction. The huge blood-colored star in the darkness continued to rotate, emitting bursts of blood-colored light. Unexpectedly, Zhao Fu did not refuse this time, and he turned to look at Nangong Shuiwe's beautiful face and smiled as he lifted her chin. At that moment, Nangong Shuiwe looked at Zhao Fu, and only then did she see Crown Prince Qin's true appearance. He was incredibly young, and his face was quite delicate and pretty. His aura was quite enchanting, and he gave off a trace of nobility, elegance, and dignity. With this aura, he would most likely be able to attract many women. Seeing Zhao Fu's flirtatious actions, Nangong Shuiwe was not displeased at all. Instead, she felt quite delighted. She knew that Great Qin's legatee was interested in her. At first, she had been worried that her looks would not be enough to attract Great Qin's legatee. Even though she was a famous beauty, with Great Qin's legatee's status, it was possible that he would not be interested in her. Even though Nangong Shuiwe was mentally prepared, thinking about what was about to happen, she still blushed and felt quite shy. However, she took the initiative to lean her head over, and their lips naturally touched. At that moment, the two of them instinctively felt a strange sensation. It was like a suction force, but it was also a kind of heartbeat. Both of their heartbeats sped up. At first, it was just a simple touch of lips, but Nangong Shuiwe found that Zhao Fu was a bit shaky, and she felt quite delighted. This meant that Crown Prince Qin did not have many women. Her husband had died when Zhao Xiaohui was around 1 year old, and she had not tried doing this much. However, as someone who had experienced it before, she knew a bit about it. Nangong Shuiwe stretched out her hands and wrapped them around Zhao Fu's neck, and she vigorously kissed Zhao Fu as she slowly stretched out her tongue. Zhao Fu also opened his mouth and welcomed her. Their tongues touched once, and they quickly tangled together. Their temperatures gradually rose, and their hearts beat faster and faster. Nangong Shuiwe could not help but fall into it, and her face became completely red. Her body gradually became powerless as she lay in Zhao Fu's embrace, and her eyes were tightly closed as she passionately kissed Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu hugged Nangong Shuiwe's mature body, and his hands started to move. He first stroked Nangong Shuiwe's willowy back before stretching his hand into Nangong Shuiwe's silk dress and grasping her voluptuous thing. Nangong Shuiwe moaned. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door, and a soldier's voice sounded out, "Your Majesty, I have something to report." This immediately interrupted the two of them, and Zhao Fu came back to his senses. He let go of Nangong Shuiwe, and seeing how passionate she was, he laughed as he said, "Get up and put on your clothes." Nangong Shuiwe nodded and felt a bit disappointed that she had been interrupted at such a crucial moment. However, she listened to Zhao Fu and calmed her rapidly beating heart before quickly putting on her clothes, returning to her elegant and mature appearance. At that moment, Zhao Fu said, "Come in." Following this, the soldier pushed open the door and walked in. The loyal soldier did not dare to look directly at Zhao Fu, so he did not notice anything amiss. He cupped his hands and lowered his head as he reported, "Your Majesty, there's news from Battle City. There's news from Battle City that something big has happened." Battle City? He had left all of the matters there to Guinea, and he rarely went there in order to avoid causing trouble. "What's so big about it?" Zhao Fu asked the soldier. There was no need to hide it from Nangong Shuyue, as it was a big matter that many people already knew about. It was not a secret, so there was no need to hide it from Nangong Shuyue. However, Nangong Shuyue was quite happy because she had succeeded. When a soldier had first reported that something big had happened, Nangong Shuyue had thought that Zhao Fu would tell her to leave. However, Zhao Fu had no intentions of telling her to leave. Chapter 411. Hearing Zhao Fu's words, the soldier immediately replied, "Your Majesty, rumor has it that Battle City's city lord has been heavily injured for some reason and is on the verge of death. This has caused Battle City to fall into chaos, and various factions want to seize power, so many battles have broken out. However, the system guards don't seem to care, so I'll have to ask Your Majesty to take a look. The competition for the position of City Lord is starting so soon?" Zhao Fu had not expected this, and he nodded, indicating that he understood and had the soldiers withdraw. After thinking for a while, Zhao Fu fell silent. Zhao Fu stood up and turned to look at Nangong Shuyue as he said, "I'm going back to Qin City." Nangong Shuyue understood that Zhao Fu had something to say, so she smiled and nodded before feeling a bit shy as she asked, "Your Majesty, what's the matter?" She then shyly asked, "Your Majesty, what happened just then?" Zhao Fu lightly laughed. He hadn't been able to control himself just then, and he had felt quite strange. However, that feeling of contact was incredibly beautiful and mesmerizing. Zhao Fu knew that he and Nangong Shuyue didn't have much feelings for each other. After all, it would be strange if they had feelings for each other as soon as they met. Zhao Fu looked at Nangong Shuyue and asked, "What do you think I'll do to you?" This question didn't stump Nangong Shuyue. From Zhao Fu's expression and tone, she could tell what he was thinking. Nangong Shuyue happily went up and hugged Zhao Fu as she leaned her head against Zhao Fu's chest. "Your Majesty, I'm your woman now." Since he had already done what he wanted, Zhao Fu didn't have any regrets. He put his arm around Nangong Shuyue's waist and nodded. After hearing Zhao Fu's reply, Nangong Shuyue's smile became even more brilliant, and her face became slightly red as she said in a small voice, "Your Majesty, should we continue? Should we do what we just did?" Nangong Shuyue wanted to take her relationship with Zhao Fu even further. At the same time, because of what had happened just then, her body instinctively reacted. "There's no need for that. I still have things to do." Zhao Fu did not neglect politics for the sake of beauty. Zhao Fu was still very rational when it came to women. He would not indulge in it, so he had always restrained himself when it came to women. "Oh, Your Majesty, my body is ready for you at any time," Nangong Shuyue said with a smile, feeling a bit disappointed. Zhao Fu nodded and let go of Nangong Shuyue. Nangong Shuyue also let go of Zhao Fu. She gradually understood Zhao Fu's personality, and she valued him greatly. Even though she hadn't succeeded this time, she had become his woman, and there would be many more opportunities in the future. As such, she didn't continue to pester him. Then, Zhao Fu left the hall. The generals waiting outside felt quite curious as to what Nangong Shuyue wanted to say to Zhao Fu. However, when they saw Nangong Shuyue following behind Zhao Fu, their faces were still red, and they could guess what was going on. Some people were quite pleased that Zhao Fu was finally interested in women, and they didn't need to worry about him. However, some people frowned. After all, they had just attacked Zhou country, and they still needed to verify Nangong Shuyue's loyalty. Now that Nangong Shuyue had taken the initiative, it was clear that she had a goal in mind. However, they all trusted that Zhao Fu would be able to grasp this opportunity. After all, as an emperor, he had to have as many beauties as he wanted, no matter what kind of women it was. As long as Zhao Fu was interested in them, he could bring them into his harem. In fact, they would even help him search for them, as this was the power of an emperor. Zhao Fu sensed the general's expressions, but he did not mind and quickly led them back to Qin City. After Qin City left, Nangong Shuyue took charge of later Zhou country's town. She first buried the soldiers who had died and expanded the army. Now that the location of the village had been leaked, they had to strengthen their defenses. With Qin City's protection and Wu Yang's faction in the region, later Zhou country would not be in much danger. However, this was just in case. At that moment, a man came up and reported something, causing Nangong Shuyue's expression to become cold as she returned to the real world. The scene here was just like in the Heaven Awakened world, and the place where the Chai family was located was surrounded. However, the targets this time were different, as they were all from the Chai family. Chai Xiaohui and Nangong Shuyue, all of you come out. You're the sinners of the Chai family. Later Zhou country was destroyed at your hands, and your bloodline should die to atone for your crimes. A young man stood in front of everyone and shouted angrily. However, some people disagreed and said, after all, they're a family, and killing them is too much. We should expel them from the Chai family, but we can't let the main culprits, Chai Xiaohui and his mother, off. By now, Nangong Shuyue had already brought people over. Just as she had expected, the Chai family would not let them off. Seeing Nangong Shuyue come out, those people pointed their spears at her. A middle-aged man, who was an important figure from another bloodline, said, later Zhou country was destroyed by you. How are you going to give us an explanation? Nangong Shuyue's expression did not change much as she calmly replied, later Zhou was destroyed by Qin City, but Ren Xiaohui's bloodline will take half of the blame. The other half is yours. If it wasn't for you interfering, later Zhou wouldn't have ended up like this. Also, Qin City has given Xiaohui the title of Lord of Zhou, and he has submitted to Qin City's legatee. In the future, he will be one of the most powerful figures in Qin City. If you want to do anything to him, rivers of blood will flow through the Chai family. Hearing that this was related to Great Qin, everyone else stopped what they were doing. Great Qin was as terrifying as a nightmare, and at the same time, they felt quite fortunate that later Zhou's foundation had not been destroyed. Even though they no longer had later Zhou, they had been conferred the title of Lord of Zhou and had latched onto Great Qin. All right, we won't do anything to Xiaohui, but Nangong Shuyue, you're an outsider, so you should take responsibility, another middle-aged woman said as she looked at Nangong Shuyue. Nangong Shuyue remained calm as she asked, what do you want me to do? The middle-aged woman coldly laughed. Atone for your crimes with your death, of course. Someone has to take responsibility for later Zhou's destruction. Your Chai family is quite arrogant. Suddenly, a voice sounded out as a valiant-looking young man walked out with many people. They were the Nangong family's people. Seeing the Nangong family's people arrive, the Chai family's expressions became quite unsightly, and some people called out, Nangong Xiong, don't meddle in our Chai family's business. Chapter 412. Hearing that Nangong Xiong wanted to take Nangong Shuyue away, some people from the Chai family were quite displeased and loudly called out, Nangong Shuyue has married into our Chai family and is now part of our Chai family. She caused such a great disaster, so she has to take responsibility for it. Also, don't think that our Chai family, a family with a legacy, will be afraid of a small family like yours. Originally, Nangong Xiong had wanted to cause trouble, but his family's leader had long since told him not to create a conflict with the Chai family at this time, and to bring Nangong Shuyue back to the Nangong family. However, when he heard this, he couldn't help but sneer. Your Chai family is still a nation's inheritance? Wasn't he killed by Qin just now? As for your Chai family, our Nangong family is not afraid of you at all. You, hearing Nangong Xiong's words, The Chai family's people were infuriated. Just as they were about to say something, one of the Chai family's family heads shouted, "Enough!" This family head's position in the Chai family was definitely not low. His voice carried a powerful aura, causing the noisy scene to calm down. Everyone looked at the family head. The family leader stepped out and said, "Let him take Nangong Shuiwei. However, she can never return to the Chai family in the future. Today, I will divorce her on behalf of Xiao Wei. She will never be a member of the Chai family in the future." Killing Nangong Shuiwei was evidently impossible. Nangong Shuiwei was the Nangong family's eldest daughter, and she was highly regarded by the Nangong family. The Nangong family was also quite powerful. If they killed Nangong Shuiwei, they would definitely offend the Nangong family. However, the Chai family was in a crisis, and later Zhou had just been destroyed. They could not offend the Nangong family and make another powerful enemy. This time, they had come for power. Once Nangong Shuiwei left, the young Chai Xiao Wei would not be able to control the faction, and they would be able to take over the faction. Nangong Xiong didn't like the way the family head spoke, but this was what he wanted to see. After Nangong Shuiwei's husband had died, the Nangong family had been trying to persuade Nangong Shuiwei to return to the Nangong family and not stay in the Chai family. However, because of Chai Xiao Wei, Nangong Shuiwei had insisted on staying in the Chai family. His attitude was very stubborn, and no one could persuade him. In the end, the Nangong family could only compromise. "Sister, do you hear me now? Come back with me." Nangong Xiong's words were filled with anger. Of course, he wasn't angry at Nangong Shuiwei, but rather at the entire Chai family. Things had developed as she had expected, and Nangong Shuiwei calmly looked at everyone. Her heart had not changed much, and she was not affected at all. "Little bro Min, I won't go back, and the Chai family won't chase me away." Hearing this, Nangong Xiong angrily looked at Nangong Shuiwei and yelled, "Big sis, haven't you heard me clearly? That person said that he wanted to divorce you and kick you out of the Chai family." The members of the Chai family were also confused. Could it be that Nangong Shuiwei has become stupid? Nangong Shuiwei still didn't hear what I said. Facing countless people's gazes, Nangong Shuiwei said calmly, "I'm now Prince Qin's woman." "Ha ha." A young man, who was the person who had spoken at the beginning, loudly laughed and said, "Isn't this helping Chai Xiao Hui find a stepfather? She looks quite loyal and virtuous, but—" Slap! Before the young man could finish speaking, a heavy slap sounded out, knocking him to the ground. Half of his face became red and swollen, and a trace of blood leaked out of his lips. The young man still hadn't reacted to the slap, and he looked up to see that it was his family leader who had personally slapped him. "All right, this matter ends here. Nangong Shuiwei is still a member of the Chai family, and Xiao Hui is still the Chai family's young master. There's no need to talk about this anymore, and everyone can leave." The family leader's voice was quite ordinary, but everyone could hear him clearly. After all, no one said anything, and the scene was incredibly silent. After hearing Nangong Shuiwei's words, everyone was incredibly shocked. Nangong Shuiwei has actually become Prince Qin's woman? This is an incredibly big matter, and she has directly formed a connection with Prince Qin. Everyone obeyed the family leader's orders and started to leave. The family leaders from the various branches all had smiles on their faces, and the family leader who had said that he was going to divorce Nangong Shuiwei immediately apologized. This was all because of Prince Qin. If Nangong Shuiwei became Prince Qin's woman, the Chai family would receive massive benefits. This was especially so now that later Zhou had submitted to Prince Qin. If they could have this relationship, it would be even better. Nangong Xiong's expression became serious, and he asked in disbelief, "Big sis, is that true?" Hearing this, Nangong Shuiwei earnestly nodded. In actuality, she didn't want to bring up Great Qin's legatee, as it would be quite disgraceful. After all, she was a woman with children, and even though her husband had died young, if she suddenly became someone else's woman, people would definitely gossip. Seeing Nangong Shuiwei nod, Nangong Xiong immediately took out his phone and made a call. This matter was quite important, and he had to tell others. The call quickly connected, and after Nangong Xiong told him about this, the other side fell silent for a few seconds before telling Nangong Xiong to come back and not to interfere with Nangong Shiyue's matters. It was evident how important this matter was to the Chai family. Nangong Xiong looked at his big sister and sighed. He wasn't used to her suddenly becoming someone else's woman, especially since it was Prince Qin. Nangong Xiong was quite opposed to this because he knew that his big sister had sacrificed her body of her own volition. It was impossible for her to have any feelings for Prince Qin, and he was afraid that Prince Qin would get tired of her and throw her away. With Great Qin's legatee's actions and the descent of the Chaos Imperial Star, it was evident that Great Qin's legatee was not a good person. Even though his big sister had become Great Qin's legatee's woman and looked incredibly glorious on the surface, she most likely did not have a good life. However, even though Nangong Xiong knew about this, he couldn't oppose it because this was what everyone wanted to see. As such, he could only sigh and leave with his people. The other family leaders smiled and politely chatted with Nangong Shiyue for a bit. After hearing some information, they felt quite satisfied and left. This farce ended here, and from the beginning, Nangong Shiyue's expression did not change at all. She had long since expected that this was one of the reasons why she had sacrificed herself. She couldn't help but think of Zhao Fu's appearance. Becoming his woman was incredibly glorious, and everyone had to curry favor with him. That was how powerful he was. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.